Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
The Lost Brother by Psychotic Tomato. What if Luffy was trained harder by Garp and unlocked all 3 types of haki? What if because of that, Ace lives? What if Big Mom was better? What if Big Mom had a child kidnapped from her and the family? What if Luffy was said child? Adios.
Chapter 26. 3 days has flown by after the battle with the organ harvesters. Todo Land was no longer being targeted for now. There were bound to be more idiots that think they could take them on if such a pathetic little organization thought that they could. But for now, they can relax and chill, run their operations normally while Luffy continued on with his training with Rayleigh. Currently, said Rubberman laid in a crater panting with Rayleigh standing over him with a wooden stick slung over his back. Fallen trees surrounded them along with Cracker, who was sitting on a stump. The sweet general, out of his biscuit armor, came to see the progress along with just being genuinely bored without anything assigned to him and wanted to see something entertaining or interesting, so he decided to come babysit his brother for entertainment. He couldn't help but sweat drop at the sight of his little brother's training that he will be going through for a couple of months, shivering at every impact delivered by the former right-hand man of the Pirate King towards the top of Luffy's head throughout the day. If it were him, he would have dropped and rolled around the floor, screaming in pain. 24 hits dodged now. Think you can make that 25 in a row? The old man teased while Luffy gritted his teeth. The young captain's improvement was still pretty rapid, but every 5th hit or so, Rayleigh changed things up, by either concealing his presence more, attacking faster and more aggressive than usual, and etc., making sure the Rubberman would adapt. Forcing his body to stand back up, his stance back in the offensive as Rayleigh didn't waste time and charged at him. Cracker couldn't help but lean forward and take mental notes of Rayleigh's words of advice that he threw to Luffy as he continued dodging and making distance from himself and Rayleigh. Some advice from an experienced old man such as himself could also help him train his own observation haki further after he comes back to Todo Land with Luffy, but Cracker doubts that he himself would get to Katakuri's level no matter how much he trained. Luffy, on the other hand, had massive potential for power. He sailed for a couple of months and already had a fucking bounty bigger than some in the New World. Definitely a world record. Couple that with Rayleigh's training? The seas will be fucking stirring and the skies brewing a storm upon his return and reunion with his crew. Focus on the intent of an attack, that is the hint, Cracker muttered, repeating the old man's words he kept conveying to Luffy. It was something the right-hand man commonly said to him throughout training. He and his siblings' observation haki training was similar to Rayleigh's, a blindfold and another person taking a swing at you. Except the more Cracker and his sibling progressed in training observation haki, the more people would be added to try and hit you too. Sometimes feral animals along with homies specially made by Mama would be added into the mix. And it was his first time in his years of piracy, hearing such simple words, that accurately described on how to improve or get observation haki. Although he couldn't ponder more of it as Cracker leaned back quickly, narrowly avoiding a stray rubbery fist that nearly knocked him the fuck out, but instead put a crater into a tree as he retracted it back. Hey! Watch where you're aiming that thing. The sweet general rubbed his chin that was almost grazed by his brother. Ah! Sore ow! A comical bonk sounded as Rayleigh landed a hit on Luffy's head, adding another bump to the stack of bumps on top of his head. Focus on the fight. An enemy won't give a second thought on attacking you when you let your guard down. Pirates aren't honorable fighters, Rayleigh said, amused smile on his face as he looked down at Luffy before he looked at Cracker. Despite you being here for a while now, I can't seem to recognize you from the bounty posters related to your family at all. Are you perhaps a Charlotte the Marines don't know about? Cracker snorted, understanding his confusion. Oh no, you probably heard about me. The name's Cracker. Seeing the immediate raised eyebrows of Rayleigh, he clapped his hands, conjuring the head of his biscuit armor which he juggled with one hand. I'm normally in an armor made with my devil fruit. Only time I walk around without wearing it is either in my house or the whole cake chateo. Everyone besides my family think I look like this guy. He chuckled as he stopped juggling and threw the head behind him as Rayleigh let out an "oh" as he absorbed that piece of information. That must be useful. being able to travel around normally without being linked to your bounty poster. Cracker nodded in agreement with Rayleigh at that. Just need a change in clothing, hairstyle and nobody would bat an eye. Rayleigh nodded at that. Wouldn't hurt to be cautious, the clothes stand out like a sore thumb heavily along with his hair that somehow had sparks at the end which Rayleigh didn't bother to question. It was the least weird thing he had seen around the seas where the impossible is pretty much possible. As Rayleigh continued on training Luffy, he was just almost breaking his record of dodging 24 consecutive hits but could barely dodge the 25th. The strike was getting closer and closer to a mere graze, but the stick still made contact with his head, but he was almost dodging it. The training ended once it was evening, time to head back for dinner. Well, that's it for today. Once you break your record on another day, it will be easier to dodge. Rayleigh complimented while Luffy groaned. Lying on the ground as he rolled over and bowed his head to the old man who huffed, but felt warm, seeing someone be this grateful towards a person who beating the living shit out of him for the purpose of training was a tad bit amusing. Thanks, no problem, now go off with your older brother and back to your mother, Rayleigh said, waving him off as Cracker approached his brother, slumping Luffy's arm around his shoulder as he dragged his ass towards the mirror and stood in front, waiting for her sister to come and use her devil fruit powers to open the gateway back to home territory. But not without looking back at Rayleigh, expression neutral if you ignore the maniacal grin on his face. Why not come with us and have dinner with Mama? She doesn't hold grudges against you for what you and your crew did. I think, the sweet general shrugged. Sure, maybe she was still slightly annoyed with how the Dark King got rubbings of Mama's poneglyph, but she would be less pissed about him considering he was training her son, right? I could get my little sister Brûlée to secretly sneak you back here if Mama is still pissed about what you did. Cracker quickly added on while Rayleigh rubbed his chin, facing a little downwards as he pondered on the offer, before shrugging. The 2 previous days, 3 different siblings came with him. Sometimes they gave more details about Luffy's abduction from Toto Land, Linlin's current status and just generally how they were doing. But all asked him the same thing. Yesterday, it was 2 young girls going by Flamp and Pudding, and the day before that, it was an older man going by Oven. It would be rude to turn down an invitation to a dinner a 3rd time, wouldn't it? So, with an amused smile he chuckled a bit as he accepted the dinner invitation this time around. Sure, I wonder how much Toto Land had changed after so many years. Cracker huffed, grinning wider. Good, it was a Saturday. Today and tomorrow would be the last time all of them could be gathered at once before Monday arrived and they eventually sailed back towards the islands they respectfully govern. No doubt his siblings would be curious about the former right-hand man of Roger. An old pirate always got a shitload of stories to tell. After a minute, Brûlée's head popped out of the mirror, facing a severely beaten and exhausted Luffy being carried by Cracker with Rayleigh standing beside them. She huffed before retracing her head back, which was. Stepping into the mirror world, Rayleigh examined his surroundings, an endless place that seemed to stretch endlessly with mirrors everywhere. So this is what the mirror world looks like. As Brûlée heard the mutters of Rayleigh, she widened her eyes at him before looking at Cracker, who simply nodded back at her, which made the end of her lips twitch upwards. It's something straight out of a fairy tale, isn't it? Brûlée teased as she stepped forward, circling around Cracker as she looked at Luffy and shrugging, giving Cracker her diagnosis. Luffy is alright, just needs some food and rest to prepare for tomorrow's training. Cracker simply nodded at that before they all continued moving forward. Meat, I want to eat it. Cracker rolled his eyes while Brûlée scoffed. He had been whining non-stop about it for a while now. Don't worry, Mama finally got a hold with a company willing to ship it days ago. They arrived while you were training and are being prepared by the chefs as we speak. Luffy's head shot up, face beaming as he shrugged off Cracker's grasp on him, much to the older man's surprised. But none were more surprised and taken off guard than Brûlée. Luffy ran ahead of the group as if his energy was magically restored, mouth forming into a ravenous grin and pupils turning into meat on a bone. He reeled his hand back and wrapped around Brûlée's waist, the older woman blinking a couple of times before realizing a little too late to make a comment. Come on, let's go, Branch. He launched his free arm forward, letting it stretch until he felt something and latched onto it and let his body be pulled forwards along with his arm retracting back along with Brûlée in his hold. My name's Brûlée. Her screams slowly become more quieter the further she went with Luffy. The 2 men were left in the dust, the Charlotte facepalmed while Silvers just stared. We should probably quicken up our own pace, agreed. A man stood guard at the mirror that led to the dining room, shirao sheathed in on her waist as she leaned on a wall, arms crossed without a cigarette in her mouth to not ruin her taste buds for dinner. She pushed her body off the wall, hand hovering above sword. Her poker face remained intact, but she couldn't help but notice the two familiar approaching presences darting towards her with observation haki. What worried her was the speed they were going at. Eventually, she was able to see them visually as she squinted her eyes. Her right one twitched violently at the sight of a grinning Luffy carrying brulee like a sack of potatoes, the woman shaking violently, probably to get out of her little brother's grasp. "Oi, let go of me. You ran off without the others." "Oh, right." Luffy nodded while Brulee sighed in relief, thinking her brother would finally let go of her. But that hope shattered like glass as Luffy simply turned around and sped off again, this time to get the other two. "Big sister Amande, help me," said tall neck woman simply just stared before sighing as she sauntered, trying to catch up with her brother. She couldn't help but let a small smile escape onto her lips as she did, amusement rolling off her eyes. Well, at least things aren't boring with him around. Oh, so instead of letting that sea monster go after snarling at you guys, Roger actually dived into the ocean and tried to stab it by swimming towards it while waving his sword around? To be fair, we were drunk of our ass, so we weren't thinking straight at the time. Should have seen Crocus, didn't hesitate to dive after him, grabbing several harpoons to throw at the poor beast. More and more people joined our captain in the cold waters trying to kill a single sea monster. Pretty sure that Big Fish had tears in its eyes when they continued stabbing it before they finally finished it off. Cracker blinked before nodding, letting out a huh at that fact. To think the crew of the Pirate King were chill like that. Where were you in all that madness? Being the responsible drunkard, just in case the ship drifted away from everyone or the unforeseen happened, I stayed on deck. Tom, the man who built our ship, would have killed us if we actually lost the Oro Jackson like that. Should have seen Shanks when he was still a brat, despite being the one of the two sober ones because we only allowed man to drink. He tried diving into the oceans too. I managed to grab him by the collar of his shirt, and I might have given him a headbutt, but I can't remember, the memories become blurry after that. Rayleigh sighed, nostalgic about all the migraines and headaches he got with his crew. Sounds like your time as a part of your crew was chaotic as hell, the Charlotte commented. It was, and it's where my happiest moments were born and forever ingrained into my memory. Cracker kept silent. The eyes on Rayleigh strongly reminded him of the days when Mama would stare blankly out of into the skies seldomly, as if lost in thought or memory before someone snapped her out of it. Ho, seems like he came back. Cracker blinked at Rayleigh's facial expression becoming a bit brighter, confusion on his face before he felt what Silvers was feeling as he gazed in the same direction as he did. Huh, wonder why, with how fast he ran off, he should have reached Big Sis Amande by now. Cracker muttered as he squinted his eyes. Luffy came to a screeching halt, just stopping a feet away from them as he grins at them. Come on, Branch, my name is Brule, said there will be meat. Meat? I haven't eaten meat for 3 days already and I need it, Luffy whined. Sheesh, you're insatiable for that aren't y'all? Cracker huffed as he pried Luffy's arm open in the moment, letting Brulee drop to the floor much to her relief as she stood up and dusted her clothes. Upon being freed from her little brother's hold, she didn't hesitate to lightly flick his forehead, making him dramatic whip his head back, putting his head over the place where she flicked his head, while Brulee had her hands on her hips, looking down like a bemused mother. Geez, you don't know a thing about tact, don't y'all? Hey, what's that? Food. Let's just go eat. What is this? The menu of tonight's dinner's course, Sir Oven. The chefs are simply jumping with joy at the fact that we are cooking up a meat-based dish for today. Oven raised an eyebrow but shrugged. The cook just simply came in with these papers containing the list of what they will be served for dinner, and the chef might as well be on whatever Kizaru was on with how unnaturally happy he was about it. Quite an extensive list, Oven mused, going over everything. He was one of the few who tasted meat before, but that was long ago, after Toto Land's formation. He only ate whatever he could bake, which was mostly sandwiches, baked potatoes and apple pie. Yes, we cooked up a variety of meat-based dishes, maybe too much, the chef admitted sheepishly, but he made sure to keep out the fact that they cooked extra food for themselves to enjoy, They hadn't had the taste of chicken, pork, beef and fish ever since they came here, and they were sure the Charlottes wouldn't notice, hopefully. He wanted to try a bowl of fucking chicken nuggets with ketchup dipping sauce again after so long. Once he excuses himself back to the kitchen, he was going to savor that shit. The table was full of dish covers, concealing the appearance and fragrance of their dinner, while they all had different shapes of cups and glasses, filled with soda, wine, cola, tea and whatever beverage they desired. Katakuri, unlike most of his siblings who were looking at the stainless steel covers on the table, Simple kept his gaze at the large mirror hanged on the wall. His eyes glowed red momentarily before they went back to normal. He huffed, smirking underneath his scarf as he gazed at the mirror with newfound interest in the future he saw. It's been a while since they had a guest, they're coming. Finally, Mont Dor muttered, interested in a couple of dishes that had cheese in the. Luffy was the first to bust out of the mirror. Looking happier than usual, someone probably told him that dinner will be meat-based, which is why he was in a good mood. Welcome home, Master Luffy. A chef who stood nearby greeted him while bowing, with the boy himself just simply waving along with a yo. All servants in the chateau were all sworn to secrecy about the existence and return of Charlotte Linlin's 36th son, especially after the Charlottes made an example out of a person who simply questioned what would happen if they did. Made forced to watch the man tossed off a cliff with his legs and arms bound by shackles along with a rope tied around his torso connected to a boulder was quite the strong enforcement for them to shut the fuck up about this matter, and they will happily oblige. Cracker, a man followed behind and the chef greeted them all the same, but the next person made the chef shriek as he stepped back. Ho, isn't this quite a fancy dining room? At the unfamiliar voice, everyone turned their heads towards the old man popping out from the mirror and reacted immediately. Everybody knew who he was, despite his hair being longer and completely white. There was no mistaking that he was Silver's Rayleigh, former right-hand man of Gold Roger. Some were relaxed, but many others were still tensed, not worried about the Dark King being a possible threat, but rather because of Mama's former spite for the old man's crew. You haven't changed at all, Linlin. Rayleigh mused. His face was all smiles with a friendly demeanor, but his hands twitched, ever so slightly, ready to grab his blade to go on the defensive in a moment's notice. But he relaxed as tensions eased in the room as the Yonko laughed without any maliciousness in her tone. And you changed a lot. Let's agree to bury the past, it was a long time ago, no point in holding a meager grudge. With that sentence, Rayleigh couldn't help but widen his eyes slightly at that, but quickly reverted back to his neutral face. She really mellowed out a lot if she considers that a meager grudge, and it was just from seeing a newborn smile. Rayleigh gave a side glance towards the boy in question. The corner of his lips couldn't help but point upwards as he thought about another baby, except him and his crew found him from a treasure chest. Yeah, there's no doubt, you picked good on who to give that straw hat to, all right, you damn red-haired brat. Agreed. Rayleigh nodded, like dominoes. Everyone relaxed, shoulders slumped with a few even letting out a sigh of relief, but the attention was still on him. He just stood there as he watched Amanda, Brûlé, Cracker and finally Luffy move to their seats. Upon seeing the rubber boy sit down, he seemed to be conversing with those same two young girls that visited him along with another taller boy with a smile on his face. He should probably sit with them, it's always good to sit with people you knew. So, he just simply grabbed the nearest chair near him and walked towards them, walking a circle around the room till he reached them and sat down between Luffy and the other person. Don't mind me. Don't sweat it, you. Ewan reassured Rayleigh as he moved his chair for the man to sit between him and his brother. You sure do have a lot of siblings, Luffy-kun, Rayleigh mused, internally sweat dropping as he looked around him. It's been a while since he had many people stared at him in recognition. He could eye some who he had seen in the newspaper along with their bounties, but majority of them were unknown to him. Ewan and Luffy laughed at Rayleigh's comment. Yeah, in total including Luffy here and me, there's 86 children, 47 brothers and 39 sisters. She, I can't wait to tell Ace and Sabo about you guys. Yeah, go ahead, your sworn siblings are also ours too. Ewan gave the thumbs up to Luffy, who responded with a wide grin, unaware about the majority of the older siblings including their mamas thought about that. Yeah, they needed to address and discuss that later, push that for the future selves. Present selves just wanted to enjoy dinner. You sure seem to have gotten along with your siblings quite quickly, Luffy, Rayleigh mused, making the young boy to laugh again. Alright, without further ado, please enjoy your dinner. The chef excused himself out of the dining room, leaving the family alone. He sure left in the hurry. Daifuku huffed before focusing on the dish covers as everyone started pulling them off, revealing the plates. The fragrance hit them harder than any armament haki users could ever accomplish. It was alien to majority of them, but the rare few were nostalgic about this old but recognizable smell before the formation of Todo Land. The smell was violent in its impact, unforgiving for their nostrils as they took in its fragrance, which was enhanced by its seasoning. There were plates of popcorn chicken, chicken nugget, and fried chicken, jerk chicken, steak fingers, hot dogs, turkey leg, Salisbury steak, Buddha kimchi, several slabs of different steaks stack up on one another, sashimi, crab legs, lobster with butter dipping sauce, beef tenderloin, Wellington, colladettes, burgers, sandwiches, pizza with meat, sushi with salmon and various slices of fish, lihapiraka, barbecue skewers, spaghetti with meatballs, ramen with beef, pork, chicken, grilled brisket, bacon-wrapped dates, satay sticks, shepherd's pie, pork loin, stew, chicken tikka, burritos, quesadilla, shish kebab, stew with different meats in them, ham, turkey slices, meatloaf. And finally, the simple but a favorite for Luffy's. Meat on a bone, specifically, Sea King meat. Overall, it made them incredibly insatiable for the taste for it, to sink their teeth into it and have a taste. The first one to do that was Luffy, who happily grabbed the bone and started chewing barbarically. Smoothie followed next, grabbing a barbecue skewer and eating with delight as all followed, hands outstretched to grab different food from the plates. Delicious. Damn, this is good. Rayleigh looked amused as he ate slices of ham and turkey along with a couple pieces of beef Wellington while gazing at Luffy. The plate of meat on the bone was placed in front of him seat instead of being scattered around the tables like the rest, which was left up for grabs. Not only that, the portions were bigger, probably cooked for him so he would only focus on it rather than the others. He wonders how many times he's stolen food from his siblings until they came up with this solution for this day of dining. Your chefs did well, you must pay them high if you eat like this every day. Linlin snorted at Rayleigh's compliment. A chef working for her were one of the most well-paying jobs in Todo Land, but they went above what she paid them for. A bonus was probably in check for their hard work. She will just grab a handful of gold straight from the treasury and toss it to them. Let them split it amongst themselves. Naturally, they are cooking for all of us. Any human who could single-handedly feed me or one of my children alone earns my respect, Linlin said with pride as she devoured the slabs of steak on a plate. Understandable, I see half of where Luffy's appetite comes from, Rayleigh mused. The other half of where that black hole of a stomach was inherited from was towards Garp. He wasn't sure if Dragon inherited that big appetite trait from his father or not, but it was highly plausible considering he was the Navy hero's son. Katakuri took great interest in the lihapiraka. It was a type of pie made from the dough used for donuts, mixed with meat in it. He hummed, using the same trick he used when eating around his family without showcasing his mouth, intensely concentrating on the pie and devouring it at the speed of light, his head motionless while a good chunk of the food disappeared, leaving only bite marks which was proof of him eating it. Good? Katakuri hummed in approval at the taste while Oven and Daifuku just deadpanned at him for a solid 5 seconds before they continue eating on. The snake-neck Quar were ravenous. Amand in particular was devouring food at almost the same speed as Luffy, the woman gulping different foods, finding the seafood most enjoyable. It took 10 minutes before everyone cleared the table, many degrees of satisfaction plastered on their face, Luffy being the brightest. Well, that was fulfilling, Parasparrow hummed, licking his lips to clear any leftover crumbs on his mouth while Compote nodded alongside him. To think you eat like this every day, I'm quite envious of you, Luffy, Rayleigh said with an amused smile at the younger boy who simply laughed at that. Alright, Big Mom clasped her hand, looking down towards all her children, getting their attention. Do you mind leaving me with this old man so he can covers for a bit? The siblings looked at each other, nodding at one another before one by one they all left, Ewan dragging Luffy out along with him, shooting a glance at his brother who kept staring on at Rayleigh and their mother, just staring at each other. Rayleigh broke the silence once the doors clicked, So, what do you want to discuss with me, Big Mom? Lin huffed, drinking from her wine glass that was half full. Don't worry, it's just a simple question. Rayleigh quirked an eyebrow but nodded. Go on. Are you actually married to Shaki-chan? Yes, I am, happily so. Huh, so all those times you both clashed back when she and I were still a part of Rocks, you both were actually flirting? Yes, we were. Huh. Big Mom blinked, before reaching from behind her, towards a drawer. A flower vase at the corner along with various den mushis at its side. She grabbed the furthest left one and placed the snail phone on the table and simply dialed. Purru. Rayleigh blinked, seeing the expression of Big Mom's eyes narrowed with a shit-eating grin on her face while waiting for the other end to pick up. It was as if she hit the lottery. Who are you calling? Give me a moment. Purru. Pure click. Good evening, this is the captain of the Beast Pirates Kaido. How would you like to fucking die? Brad, it's been a while, huh, old hag? What the fuck do you want? You now not only owe me for saving your fucking ass at God Valley. You now also owe me 100. Oh, berries, you ungrateful son of a bitch. So, that's why Mama wanted you to stay behind with her. Pretty much, Rayleigh currently was sitting around a table with a couple of Linlin's kids which consisted of Smoothie, Katakuri, Opera, Galette and Poire. The old man, after 5 minutes of listening to Linlin and Kaido's petty argument escalating into threats of death and war, made Rayleigh feel like there wasn't any reason to stay. So he simply left through the door and wandered to the nearest sign of life which led to the current situation. Didn't expect the Dark King himself to be married, much less to one of Mama's former crewmates too. Smoothie mused, her eye held curiosity over the matter. She heard tales of Mama's different crewmates before. Shaki was described by Mama as a pretty strong fighter that could hold her own damn well along with being a sweet talker that could get along with anybody and was a good drinking partner. Another thing about her was the fact she also brought another woman along for the ride on board the crew. Rayleigh snorted as he leaned back. I didn't expect to fall into love in my life on piracy, but when we both clashed with each other for the first time and met up in less hostile terms after mine and her crew disbanded, we gave it a go and it worked out for us. Love is weird, Galette bluntly commented with her younger twin nodding her head in agreement. You think that's why Perispero shudders at the thought of himself being in a romantic relationship? Poire mused, her tone genuine which had gears turning in their heads. Even Katakuri was internally considering that to be the possible reasoning on Perispero's complete avoidance off romance which had Rayleigh internally chuckling in amusement. External expression unchanging except for an uncontrollable smile on his face. He always does have a look of disdain on his face whenever we bring that up fa. Opera nodded to himself, recollecting those moments when he drank away in a pub ran by one of their siblings alongside a few others. Every time someone teased Perispero about love, his face either looks completely uninterested or disgust. Katakuri closed his eyes to recollect those moments too, but remembered about a memory that happened a few moments ago and snapped out of his thoughts. He remembered the reason Rayleigh was still here and looked at said man apologetically, giving a slight respectful bow. Apologies for my sister Brûlée for not being here right now. She went off to tuck our siblings 12 and under into bed. I did not foresee that moment. No worries, babysitting is quite the task, especially with how you have multiple young siblings who haven't reached puberty to boot too in your case. Really stressful stuff. Rayleigh dryly said, the light in his eyes dead as everyone felt nothing but sympathy for the poor old man. They know a person who dealt with a baby's goo goo gaw shit just by a mere look into his eyes, a fellow comrade in misery like them. Indeed, Katakuri responded. The atmosphere around him was gloomy as unwanted memories made its way into his line of thoughts. He would rather fight king or queen solely to avoid it. One of the eldest and strongest he might be, but damned is taking care of one of his siblings when they were babies till they can take care of themselves the worst task. Nay, the worst punishment anyone can be given. Who's the little shit you had on board? Only person I can see is red hair with his age. Smoothie got her question answered with Rayleigh's head nodding. Didn't help that none of us knew how to take care of a baby, had to smack Roger's head once when he shoved a damn bottle of whiskey into Shanks' mouth a month before he learned to walk. Rayleigh slid his hand down his face, memories being unburied and being replayed in his head much to his displeasure and self-amusement as he continued on. Should have seen Crocus, poor bastard's bedroom was next to Shanks. Took him within a week to finally go mad. We had to travel back to Tom, the man who built our ship, to soundproof that red-haired brat's room before our doc finally decided to throw him overboard as an offering for the Sea Kings. The Charlottes let out various degrees of dried chortles, their tone laced in understandable suffering, a fellow comrade in baby-raising misery Rayleigh truly was. That gloomy mood was broken when Cinnamon came into the room, bag of berries in hand with eyes glittering in anticipation, one Rayleigh was too familiar with. He's seen the same glimmer whenever people entered the casino, only for that to either die or glimmer even more when they leave. Hey Smoothie. The decoys are in place, Silver Rayleigh? Her attention immediately shifted towards the old man who just waved, but curiosity was in his eyes which he directed towards the sweet general. Decoys? Mind telling this old man what this is about if it isn't anything troublesome? Secret, she simply mused. But the musing turned to curiosity as she pondered about something. Meeting Rayleigh's eyes, she smiled, curved lips sharper than a knife as she quickly formulated an idea. Although, since you are stuck with us for a while and have nothing really much to do save for training our little brother back on Rusukaina, why not participate in one of our usual nighttime activities? Smoothie offered, her siblings around her immediately knew what she was talking about. Saturday game night, betting absurd amounts of money and anything valuable in a room away from any prying eyes. Only rules were to never let anyone except a trusted individual know about this event and not to whine or brag about your wins and losses afterwards, not to cheat and most importantly to never use haki, a rule made to deal with Katakori's future sight bullshit. A game hosted and known only by the siblings themselves. The way it normally goes is some would take turns playing in a secret room while others stay outside and do the usual night routine in cycle to avoid drawing attention or suspicion. The ones entering and leaving was entirely pending on who Mama chose to roam around the castle as security. What made this game so special was that every single person who was up for game was here without the need to travel through Brulee's mirror world. When Monday came around, they all will go back to the islands they are supposed to be governing, and it will take a while before they all are reunited again in a single place without the need of Brulee's powers. And this night will turn historic if the right-hand man of Rayleigh joins. Sorry Missy, but I ain't got no money. Well, I can give you that money, but you will have to hear me out and agree upon something. You interested, old man? Smoothie offered with a grin, setting an appetizing bait in the form of a proposition for the right-hand man. A bait that he was all too willing to bite down on. Interesting, continue on. Rayleigh responded back with a devilish look, a grin of a shark and eyes of a predator, something that everyone in the room was wary of right now. Some shuddering at how both stared at each other with such sinister looks on their faces. Where are we going? Luffy asked as he was descending down the castle, getting dragged along and currently escorted by an all too pumped up a man who kept her poker face up while her body movement showed her emotions. A rare small smirk miraculously cracking through the emotionless look as she turned her head to face her brother. Somewhere secret, a place Mama nor her subordinates and homies know about, away from prying eyes. The snake neck simply said as they headed for the alcohol storeroom, a storage area adjacent to the treasury on the 4th floor. Getting onto the floor level and barging into the storeroom where shelves, crates and barrels of alcohol were kept and stored in room temperature. Amanda placed her hands on the left side of the wall and walked along, her hands sliding on the surface before finally finding the small opening. She unsheathed Shirao and stabbed through the opening and used her sword as a crowbar, prying the wall open that led down to a wooden door. Huh? You guys have a secret tunnel in here? Is there a buffet at the end? Amanda snorted at that, giving her brother a push so he could go in first before she followed, pulling the handle mounted behind the wall to shut it closed behind them. No sadly, but we do have games. Make sure to not tell anyone except the ones inside the room, alright? Luffy nodded his head rapidly. Yeah. Somehow, Amanda both felt relaxed and tense, like the secret will stay hidden, but other people will know but simply shut their mouth about the matter, and she could only hope they stay like that in the future. Here, I'm betting you on this, Amanda said, placing a hefty bag of money onto her brother's hand, tallied up to roughly 100 million berries worth of gold, valuable treasures and money bundles. Luffy finally realized the situation he was in and couldn't help but bear his grin out, one sharper and more gluttonous than his usual more cheerful ones. A grin he only used over the gambling dens that he, Sabo and Ace screwed over to get money to support their pirate fund. A shame they couldn't enter the official casinos in the rich side of the island to gather way more. They could have brought the entire kingdom to its knees if they were allowed to dive into that massive pool of cash. Luffy opened the bag and chuckled at the money. He looked at Amanda, and she knew he was up for game. She knows the look of a gambler when she sees one. "What games are we playing?" Amanda simply smirked at the question. No questions needed to be answered beforehand, straight to the point. Little brother already knew what is up and she liked it. Craps, roulette, blackjack and good old poker. Luffy simply laughed, nodding at the mentions of games he was pretty good at. "How will we split the money? Let's go for 50-50. "Alright." Luffy accepted as he opened the doorway. The eyes of 40 or around so inside the room gazed at their little brother entering along with Amanda following closely behind. They started continuing on what they were doing after taking a glance at them. They were arranging tables and chairs, shuffling and checking through cards in their boxes to remove the joker cards for blackjack. One person was fiddling with the roulette, spinning the wheel around before abruptly stopping the rotation by simply pressing his finger on top of it as his attention is now at Amanda and Luffy. "Ah, glad to know we got another gambler in the family." Cracker grinned, although it died down a bit in favor of his curiosity when he looked at the bag Luffy carried before glancing at Amanda, who's behind Luffy and was waiting for him to fully step inside before she did so with narrowed eyes before they widened in realization. The grin his sister shot him when she noticed his attention on her was a dead giveaway on how Luffy attained that money. Damn, she's already gambling money on little bro before the actual game starts. He internally shouted in disbelief as he kept a calm facade on the outside. The gut feeling of going home broke could be felt as he gazed at the two. "Usual time?" Amanda simply asked Cracker as she stepped inside, already going towards compote and oven to help them set up the chairs. "Yeah, clock strikes 10, we are starting without delay nor waiting for anything." Once everything was arranged, it was simply the waiting game for them. "So, feeling confident in winning some, eh little brother?" Luffy blinked at the voice coming below him before he looked down to see a smiling tablet whose arms were crossed. The older man had finally decided to get to know his brother a little better somewhat with small talk. The long-haired blonde could see the confusion by his head tilt before snorting, "Yeah, should have figured." It was hard to remember so many of his siblings, hell, many of them including himself forget some of his siblings' names sometimes. "I'm your older brother Tablet," he introduced before jumping up on a table to get on equal level with him. "You're short." Tablet snorted at Luffy's bluntness but appreciated his honesty, which was refreshing. Most of his siblings tend to tiptoe around the subject of his height or avoid the subject altogether, which actually was more infuriating than straight honesty. "Yeah, I was born on the smaller scale of the family." "Your hair looks cool though, you remind me of a lion." "Ta ha 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 ha. Is that so?" "Yeah, my hair looks wicked, doesn't it?" "Oh yeah, he can definitely get along with Luffy just fine, alright, he can feel it." As they both happily converse, their attention was drawn to the sound of the door being opened. The hidden entrance was once again open, with Smoothie, Katakuri, Opera, Galette and Poire coming inside, to which they were greeted by numerous people as per normal. The last person that entered had Luffy beaming brighter up at. "Really? Oh, so that's where you ran off to?" Rayleigh huffed as he approached Luffy, who sat on a chair beside a much shorter man who sat on a table who looked at him with curiosity. "You gamble?" the old man simply asked as he sat down next to his student, who simply chuckled, and he can feel it in his bones that he was sitting next to a pro. "Yeah, me, Ace and Sabo used to go to these small buildings in the slums against the bad adults to play when we were still kids. We couldn't go to the big ones in the kingdom though because Sabo said the guards there will be a real problem to us if we were caught," Luffy said, pouting in remembrance as he was told and reprimanded by both of his older brothers. Rayleigh simply hummed at that. It was a smart move. Despite their prowess, if they were to cause a scene in a notable area, it could catch the unwanted attention of others, and no matter how powerful they were as kids, they were just 3 boys against who knows how many people that will be sent to catch them. That, and they had to be adults in the first place if they wanted to enter. "How's your skill?" "Pretty good." although they weren't happy about me whenever I won and never lost. They were pissed, weren't they? Tablet chimed in with a wild grin. Something Luffy matched with his own grin. She, yeah, they were. But they would leave us alone when Ace threatened to torch the place down and Sabo tearing the place up with bombs he made if we weren't allowed to leave. Geez, weren't you three a bunch of bloodthirsty little brats back then? Luffy just laughed more at that. Oh, how he wished Sabo and Ace were here right now, but he will make do with himself. Not our fault they were sore losers, Rayleigh and Tablet snorted at that. The room was bustling with conversations, with occasional giggles and scoffs there and there, all here for the same reason, which was to get money off from the other. All voices dialed down quickly for all to hear the alarm going off from where Cracker was, the general grinning as his eyes had nothing but malicious greed. Let's begin, in a distant KINGODM somewhere. Is it there? Yeah, they're auctioning off your dagger right now before your hat? I'm seeing a lot of nobles in here. All smug and snobby ones by the looks of it. Probably the type to wipe their ass with berries. Those motherfuck, calm down Ace, we will get your stuff back yoy. Ace clicked his tongue and grunted in acknowledgement, but it did not put out the ever-growing fire within. Currently, Ace and Marco were outside, loitering around the outer premises of an auction house in the dead of midnight. Cloaks draped over their bodies to hide their appearance. The 12th Division Commander Haruta, whom also accompanied them, was currently disguised inside the place to survey the interiors while rigging the place up. Sabo had called him, pulled some contacts and received words that the stuff that were confiscated from him when he was temporarily imprisoned and impelled down was being sold off in an auction house in some rich kingdom. The revolutionary wanted to inform him, knowing Ace wanted his stuff back. Although it was more for his hat rather, that piece was just too cool to be sold off to anyone, especially those, and to quote from Sabo, filthy egotistical wankers. At least Sabo was starting to make up for making him and Luffy think he was dead till he showed up in the flesh. The times he had prayed for his soul in a temple or isolated area whenever his death anniversary came up, thinking that the blonde was watching over them when it turned out he was alive. He was grateful for such an unexpected surprise to pop up after his breakout. But like, come on, he thought he was going to be joining him in the afterlife in a minute. Damn, would it have been awkward to find himself alone in the afterlife and find out Sabo was alive the entire time if the Marines were successful in killing him. Ace shook his head and smacked his cheeks. No point in thinking about useless things now, he should be living and thinking in the present. Him and Marco were able to knock out a patrolling guard outside, took his uniform and made Haruta wear it when his build was perfect to slip into his garments. Fortunately it covered up his face so he wouldn't be recognized while inside. Alright, Ace grabbed the snail phone's dial and called in, Haruta, how's it in there? Security is pretty light, I see a vice admiral near the entrance with a couple of commodores and lieutenants. Besides that, just the usual auction guards. Doesn't look like they are here on official nor approved orders from the Navy considering the way they carry themselves. Looks more like they are here on favors and personal reasons. Ace hummed at Haruta's observation, rubbing his chin before a grin made its way onto his face. And Marco couldn't help but groan at his next sentence, his mind connecting the dots from how they prepared beforehand. Are the distractions set up? Haruto was grinning deviously on the other end, something the snail mimicked when his brother asked that. Yup, got them rigged underneath the chairs, behind potted plants and paintings. What did you guys even stuff inside those little bombs of yours, yoy? Don't worry about it, Marco. The smell after detonation isn't that bad, I think. Marco felt so reassured at Haruto's oh-so-calming words. We are going to have the entire naval fleet on our ass, aren't we, yoy? The Phoenix answered the most obvious question with how they were assaulting a place full of high-standing figures, to which Ace looked at him with an expression that screamed, that's the plan. Well duh, I haven't actually fought against an army before, so I want to tick that off from my bucket list. An admiral coming would be a bonus too. It's all in an effort so you can have a higher bounty than your brother, isn't it, yoy? It's so that I can get a higher bounty than Luffy. Ace nodded without shame nor hesitation. We ain't even a month in laying low and your dumbass is already going to be causing mass panic in a kingdom, you included too, Haruta. Marco pinched his nose as he stared at the more alluring wooden branch. The need to bang his head against a solid surface over dealing with his crew's shit was strong. He didn't even need to look up to know Ace and Haruta's face on the snail phone had the most shit-eating grins etched onto their faces. Hey, at least I'm doing this for a good reason also. That hat is a part of my identity, and I wouldn't be complete without it. Don't want to be the hatless one amongst Luffy and Sabo too. Ace puffed up his chest as he stated ever so pridefully about how the hat meant so much to him, irritation of Marco just deepening as he simply sighed longer. The Phoenix was wondering if he could smoke whatever Kizaru was on to drift off to another plane of existence to avoid dealing with this bullshit. You can just buy another one. Won't beat the original, and besides, I got it for free. The 1st Commander Division knew Ace's shenanigans to know too damn well enough that he most likely committed arson or something similar and just grabbed the hat along the way for how it looked. No way he got it normally. Marco and Ace snapped out of it when Haruta called out to them from the other end. The auction starting, both Marco and Ace silently listened to the other end. Before they flinched slightly at Haruta's gasp, the 1st Division being concerned Haruta's cover might have been blown. What's wrong Haruta Yoi? Damn Ace, Haruta whistled, impressed on whatever he was seeing in the auction. Your dagger alone has a starting bid of 100 million berry. Their eyes widened, Marco whistling too impressed by the value while Ace gawked in disbelief. Something Marco didn't miss as he snorted at his reaction. Don't be surprised Yoi, considering your infamous biological bloodline. Marco carefully chose his words, a wise decision when seeing Ace's scowl upon his wording, but it seems he kept control over the fire within right now as Marco continued on. They will obviously find the possessions that is associated with a notorious figure very valuable. Damn, it's climbing fast, it's at 150 mil, 200 mil. 500. The more Haruta talked, the more Ace felt his soul departing further and further away from his body, slipping out of his gaping mouth as Marco rapidly shook his body to snap him back into reality. That dagger just costed me around 50,000 berries from some dude selling it on the streets. The hell? Ace shook his head, snapping out of it while getting a headache as Haruta continued on, the price ramping up to $500 million now. Again, reputation and infamy of previous holder Yoi. Marco shrugged, waiting for the signal which was the end of the bidding, which wasn't ending anytime soon. I bet you 1,000,000 berries it ends at more than 2 billion. Marco betted in amusement while Ace huffed, not biting the bait that this pineapple head that he considers a brother was tauntingly dangling in front of him. They can take the dagger for all I care. Anyone who touches the hat is getting a live cremation. Marco chuckled at that. -2 minutes later. And it's over, congratulations, Ace. Your dagger alone is expensive. Ace groaned at that, just glad the bidding's over, but still flabbergasted at the final offer. 3,365,000,000. That piece of steel had a value on par with a fucking Yonko's bounty. Seems like they are taking a small break, don't worry it ain't off the table. They plan to give it away after it's all settled. Haruta trailed off before speaking in a more serious tone. Initiate phase 2. Alright, now that's done and over Yoi, Haruta, your finger on the trigger for whatever you guys cooked up. Yeah, be prepared to storm in. Both Ace and Marco nodded as they hanged up and moved onwards towards the next step of the plan. As they stepped out from the shadows and walked towards the entrance, they sighted the security stationed outside with nobody around. 2 heavily armored guards were stationed, wielding halberds along with a flintlock strapped to the side of their hips. Both immediately noticed them by the sounds of incoming footsteps. Excuse me gentlemen, Ace didn't even let the guardsman finish, mentally exhausted at hearing the price of his dagger as he simply coated his hand a charcoal black that shined through the darkness and delivered a karate chop to his neck with it, knocking him out quickly as his body went limp. Ace retracted his hand and sidestepped to allow the body to fall down to the embracing cold dirt ground. Marco instantly gave a follow-up, not letting the other guard to take action when he got startled after watching his fellow man get knocked. The Phoenix swung his leg high and kicked him hard, around the same area that Ace had struck to the other man, knocking him out similarly and letting him join his fellow brethren in the cold dirty comfort of soil. Mask, Ace simply said as they reached for a pair of respiratory masks slung on their hips that they got from a mining operation nearby alongside some goggles. When we hear the explosion sound, we quickly get in, grab my shit and get the fuck outta here. Marco and as he lazily smirked under his mask. Yes, Captain. Ace visually cringed and shivered hard at Marco's tone in that delivery. Oh, that was going to take some time to get used to, if he can ever get over his new position that was given to him without much consent. Pops was someone irreplicable, but someone needed to fill in his shoes. Marco was a better fit, but yet here he was, quite literally forced into the position without much of a say. But now wasn't the time for self-doubting. Save that back when they got on board the Moby. Let's just get this over and done with, he scoffed, unamused as Marco snorted, feeling quite the opposite. Sure. Couple of seconds flew by before explosions went off along with the screams of tormented souls inside, which was their cue to make their grand entrance. Opening the doors, they were met by the sight of Haruta in the far-off corner waving them off, mask on as he slithered his disguise off like a snake. The man was clearly grinning behind his protection against the Naz's concoction as Ace and Marco calmly walked down the stairs. Nobles, guards and marines alike were kneeling and coughing around the room as the Nase's gas fumes from the detonated bombs filled the room, but the smell wasn't their main concern, but rather their secondary, for the main irritant was the effects it was having on their eyes. One marine was tenacious enough to charge at them with a war cry, sword reeled back in the air, ready to feebly strike them down, which Marco casually dealt with. A simple leg sweep to make him lose balance along with his head hitting hard against the edge of the chair knocked him out real quick. What the heck did you guys put in stuff, Yoi? Marco asked again, sweating as he watched the nobles' various forms of suffering. One was scratching their skin hard till he bled red. Many were frantic and crazed as they seemed to be suffering severe hallucination as they screamed blood murder as they tried backing away in a corner while crying murder. The rest were either unconscious or rolling around the ground as if they were being burned alive. Ace simply chuckled under his mask, a chuckle that made Marco shiver with how devious it was, something that was not helped when Haruta joined in as he helpfully finally revealed what diabolical brew they stirred up. Oh, nothing special. Just little touches of cinnamon, pepper and chili extracts, cow dung, pieces of the devil's lettuces, weed, and some random bright-looking shrooms and plants we picked off from random islands. Marco blinked, brain unable to decide if he should feel sympathy for the victims lying around him, appalled by his brother's concoction of random shit, or curious how effective it would be in an actual battle. Maybe they could use it against that damn traitor. Ace casually shrugged through the surrounding nobles' suffering as he calmly walked towards the stage where Haruta was, standing up and grabbing his stuff and quickly walking out as fast as he entered alongside his brothers. That was easy, Haruta mused as Ace huffed, as they stepped outside. The Whitebeards, upon taking off their gas mask to breathe in the fresh air, looked back as they heard a groan. Someone was crawling with his elbows towards them, eyes bloodshot red with bleeding self-inflicted claw marks that bled all over his arms and face as he too was desperate for fresh air. Haruta simply walked up and kicked him in the face without emotion nor remorse, sending him tumbling back before gazing at Ace. They both nodded and got to work. They first closed the door shut as Haruta pushed his body back against it, Ace running off and coming back with boxes, something he placed next to Haruta. What are you dumbasses doing, Yoi? Prolonging their suffering. Haruta and Ace said in sync without hesitation as they continued on building the barricade. Marco could only sigh in utter disappointment, like a father seeing his child committing the dumbest thing possible. This is stupid. Why are you standing there, Marco? 'Cause I'm the only responsible adult here that needs to supervise two idiots? Marco rolled his eyes as he spoke with clear sarcasm in his voice, head trying to wrap around why he was here. Well, why don't you be responsible by helping me stack the crates against the door? Marco snorted, as if he walked Captain's orders. Marco blinked before he groaned as Ace's words sank in. Already regretting calling him Captain from earlier as Ace shot a smug grin that he so wish he could dig his fist into right now. But Captain's orders were Captain's orders, and he was the first Commander Division and right-hand man of this somehow functional shit show. So, with a sigh, he helped, doing the bare minimum by hauling 2 loaded crates towards the makeshift barricade. Haruta stopped pressing against the door as they replaced it with loaded crates, just in time as the gas started seeping out from underneath the small openings through the door that had banging noises coming from behind, the nobles and marines desperate to get out, unaware how much of a task that would be. Once both were satisfied, they walked up to Marco, who had been watching from a fair distance looking quite proud of themselves. The Phoenix had a look that just pretty much exerted, "Done with this shit," energy on his face. Something that he ran through with his hand as he let out a disappointed sigh for what felt like the 100th time of the day, which had Ace and Haruta chuckle like little gremlins they were in amusement. The amusement didn't last long though, losing in favor of Navy soldiers running towards them, donning coat jackets only worn by high rankings or the notable ones in the Navy, something expected considering how loud that explosion was and the fact that some naval ships were docked around here. But against the forces of the three men, they were good as dead. Ace stood in front with a feral grin, body partially set ablaze. Heiken, fire fist. The Marine soldiers screamed in burning agony as they were incinerated, much to Ace's glee. He was going to be extra satisfied in roasting the Marines alive for the next couple of months after what they tried to pull against him. Alarms sounded loudly from everywhere, alerting every single civilian that a threat was walking around amongst their land, much to the irritation of Marco and the excitement of Ace and Haruta. You too, Haruta yoi? Well duh, who doesn't want a higher bounty? Mine's just sitting at 310 million? Marco shrugged while Ace nodded in understanding as he went deep into thought. He had a head start against Luffy as he sailed earlier than him, accumulating a bounty of 550 million before Luffy officially sailed. He wanted to get at least 700 million to 900 million on his head, but Blackbeard's execution took priority at the time. He couldn't let the rat go scot-free after committing the worst sin possible on a pirate crew. And now, after the mess that was Marineford, his bounty sat at 850 million while Luffy was exactly a billion, 150 million more than his. Ace had 2 years to raise his bounty way up, overtopping his brother's bounty, make his pops wherever he was watching over them proud and become as strong as him. And deal with the traitorous Teach, but that was going to take a while. As much as he wants that rat incinerated, he needs to be careful and actually plan instead of charging head on like a dumbass. Everyone would beat the shit out of him if he pulled another stunt like that again. Fortunately though, their pops gave them time to prepare for Teach's next course of action. Honestly, Teach could actually just be dead, considering the last and final beatdown pops gave to the ungrateful bastard son that was broadcasted for all to see. Their old man completely ignored the posse Blackbeard amassed after his betrayal. Didn't matter how much they shot him. Pop's rage and determination seemed to have numbed the pain in favor of his desire to punish Teach. When Pops finally withdrew from his assault to give his grand speech and pass away, Teach's corpse-like body was by his crew, probably to get a doctor to treat his wounds. His family, himself included, honestly weren't sure if the bastard was unconscious or near death's doors. Pops probably thought he had done him in for him to just walk away from the bastard traitor. That was their father's last gift, a setback in Teach's plan. Doesn't matter how fast the rat can recover, the injuries he sustained would take at least a month to heal, and a miracle for no permanent or life-changing injuries. It was the perfect opportunity to track him down and finish him off, but Marco insisted they need to prepare rather than go for the kill, a decision majority of his brothers went with. Teach might be out of commission, but his crew was an entirely different situation. And so, prepare they shall. Ace needed to get stronger, and what better way than to fight people who were on Pop's level. He had a lot of targets. The other Yonkos were a good start, especially Shanks with how peaceful he was compared to the more vicious two, so that was an added bonus. But first, he needed to fight a man who was on par with the Yonkos, hell, a person that had gained quite the reputation for fighting against Garp, Roger and Pops equally in a 1 versus 1. The legends around the man became mythical after the fact that he hasn't aged in a bit and was still seemingly in his damn prime. The man who sails the new world alone like he owns it. The Red Count whose presence demands respect when people are around him. I'm seeing some Navy warships coming into view. They're sailing for the harbor. Ace, seems the kingdom ain't letting us go that easily. I see a wave of them descending down from behind us and they're pissed. But first he needed to join back with his family. So, with a grin on his face with hands ignited, he commanded with excitement in his voice. Let's go, yeah, back with Luffy. 30 million on an ace deuce, 140 million on max. 170 million on a pair of 5, 160 million on 7. 300 million on the no-pass bar. Effeler shook the cup with 2 dices inside once everyone around the table got their bets in before letting the dices fly out freely onto the table. the two cubes spinning around the table before it laid flatly. She. Majority of the people groaned apart from the two winners, which was Luffy, as he got a 15-for-1 payout easily, and Melise, whom huffed in satisfaction, alongside riling up his siblings even more by smugly displaying her shit-eating grin at them. He never got this much out of anyone when he gambled, only a couple million berries and that was it. Effeler laid her arm on the table and pulled everyone's money onto her side with a smug grin, counting them up to 800 million, to which she gave 450 million from it to Luffy, to which he cheerfully collected alongside giving Melise her rightful payout, making her hum. "Not bad, little brother, not bad." Melise gave a sly grin of approval to him, which made Luffy laugh once again. "Lucky bastards," Daifuku clicked his tongue, glaring at the large amount of berries Luffy now acquired in utter envy and disdain, while Effeler snorted. "Don't be such a sore loser, Dai. When you walk up to the table with money on the line, always be prepared to lose," Effeler said, rolling with utter confidence, her tone sagely to give off a wise impression. Everyone apart from a starstruck Luffy rolled their eyes, Melise even flipping her off despite her not losing, to which Effeler happily responded with her own. "Oi, chill out." In another area, around the poker table, Katakuri, Perispero, Compote, Mundi, Zukato, Daquoise deadpanned towards Oven boiling as he sat in between them alongside Cracker, who played the role of the dealer after his turn of blackjack. The pot grew to around 980 million and was lost to Perispero, whom had a better hand than anyone else, which let him take it all. Oven did not take big losses quite while. The siblings communicated through eye contact alone, before all eyes turned to Katakuri, who shrugged as a form of approval. Compote reached down under the table, a prepared bucket of water that was also underneath the other tables, and casually threw the water onto Oven, bucket included. "My bad," Oven said, voice a bit muffled and echoing as the bucket was on his head, steam coming off from his body that came into contact with the water as all three elder siblings just stared on. They quickly continued on as Oven removed the bucket and placed it on the ground. "Blackjack. Not cheating my ass." Amanda and Smoothie were playing blackjack against each other. Everyone previously around them that played made the wise financial decision, which was to not play into their snake of a sister's hands, and left. Everyone except a stubborn Smoothie, determination setting her fate in stone. Said sister was currently cursing her snake-neck sister, whose expression was unchanging as always save for the eyes that looked smug as hell, which made Smoothie's own eye twitch at her in irritation. Amanda simply responded with action, not words, taking Smoothie's money and added it to her pile. Amanda looked on at infuriated Smoothie, who was looking down at the pile of cash that was now nothing more than a couple of stacks, with amusement. She can see the contemplation to forfeit. She won't allow that. When a snake wraps around its prey, it won't let it go so easily. "What's wrong? Is my little sister afraid to lose to her older sister? No shame in walking away." The tone of her voice was as always flat and monotone as it usually is, but Smoothie could sense the smugness in her voice and clicked her tongue. She was mocking her, and it riled her up, something her future self would punch herself over her own stupidity and emotions controlling her in the moment. "One more round, you bitch." The snake inwardly smiled at that. "Where did you get the money to gamble anyways, Rayleigh-san?" "From your sister Smoothie over there. If I profit, I give her half of cash I won. If I lose, I have trained her alongside Luffy." Mascato whistled at how easily he was bribed. Doesn't matter how much money was lost. Lessons from the former right-hand man of the Pirate King were worth more than any gold or ancient relic that could be sold if one wants to become strong. "Well, thank you in advance for training her. I'm happy for Smoothie when she will be getting trained by someone as infamous and strong as you." Rayleigh looked insulted and offended at Mascato's utter display of sincere gratefulness. "Are you insinuating I'm going to lose it all?" "Yes. Yes you are. Even our youngest sister amongst us triplets here agrees." Mash put her own opinion in, Cornstarch nodding in agreement, unable to refute seeing how much money Rayleigh lost, winning little and losing big. The right-hand man of the Pirate King let out an undignified scoff as he placed his bets in, before Mascoto and his triplet sisters placed their own and let the roulette spin. As it slowed down, the triplets around Rayleigh looked at him with amusement as he let out what sounded like someone who's been punched in the gut. "Seems like you are going to have another person to mentor soon enough." Mash teased, watching as the roulette table slowed till a halt, white marble ball stopping on a black tile. The opposite of what Rayleigh betted half of Smoothie's remaining loaned cash on. Possibly, the old man grimly accepted it with a strained smile at that possibility as the triplets snorted at him. Who knew the Dark King had such shitty luck in gambling? This lasted a good while, people rotated around what games they played, a few were leaving and entering in the room to do guard duty outside to avoid suspicion and cover for their notably absent siblings. The sweet generals, especially Snack when he was part of the regular routine, were the hardest to provide an alibi for their noticeable prolonged lack of existence around the night. Many cheered, many groaned, as lots of money was exchanged, till finally, it was over. Several were content with how Murs were pretty gloomy at their losses. But all were in sync as they gazed at the top winners of tonight's game. Amanda and Luffy happily conversed, massive bag of berries behind them which they leaned back into like a beanbag, making many of their siblings shoot envious and jealous looks at them. The duo simply added fuel to the fire. Luffy being the most visual as he shot a smug smirk while Amanda's smugness glistened from her eyes. "Good job little brother," here, Amanda said, finally tallying up how much Luffy profited with her money as she gave his share, which had him looking awestruck at it. "I can go eat at so many restaurants with this." Luffy drooled while Amanda let out a quiet chuckle that only Luffy heard, running her hand against his hair subconsciously at how much of a kid he currently looked like, the image being clearer with how he brightly beamed at her. Katakuri was in a corner, sighing at Oven, who looked at him with a mixture of a kicked puppy and a homeless beggar on the streets, to which he simply gave him some of his massive earnings, which made him beam. Katakuri couldn't bear the sight of Oven's face. Even someone as stoic as he is, was fighting back the urge to cringe hard. And finally, there was Cracker, who did the smartest thing, which was simply to avoid gambling at all costs against Luffy, Amanda and anyone whose luck was peaking in the room, allowing him to keep a large sum of accumulated wealth. He had already gotten a taste of what entailed if he fought against his little brother on the table with money on the line. He was a monster on the battlefield, but a goddamn bigger monster when it came to gambling. He had been staring at Luffy when he went and played blackjack against Opera and his brothers. He had never seen a single person get 4 blackjacks in a fucking roll till now, nor has he seen them this crushed. Especially Counter. Seems he would be sleeping on the couch when he went back to his island. Smoothie gazed expectantly at Rayleigh, who nodded in acknowledgement. Something good came out of her losses at least. More time to spend with her brother alongside the prospect of pushing past her current limits was worth the loss of money somewhat. Right now, they were just waiting on Brûlé, one of the last sibling who had to leave the room for night patrol alongside Marble and Mayukuru. Status report: everything's good. Anyone who's asking for a specific sibling was soundly deflected. Nobody seems suspicious. We don't know Mama's current situation. She isn't in her bedroom, so she's busy with something. Snack hummed in approval over his twin brother Bavarois's report. Where's Brûlé currently? She had to accompany Anglais. He was feeling thirsty, so they are heading to the kitchen. Should take around 10 minutes. Daifuku groaned in annoyance before grunting as Compote elbowed him in the gut with a click from her tongue, making him roll his eyes over his older sister, which earned him another elbow for his attitude. Alright, we will wait for Brûlé then. Call us if anything pops up. Got it. You better give back the 100 million I lend you. Yeah, I will add an extra 50 mil as a sign of good faith. Snack hung up, and it was now just simply the waiting game. Mama is busy. Doing what still? She can't be still arguing with Kaido, right? Tablet asked, arms crossed in thought as he looked up at the siblings around his age who were also thinking the same thing. The older siblings, on the other hand, Perispero gazed down, responding to his younger brother. Well, knowing Mama and Kaido's relationship with Big Mom, Charlotte Linlin, captain of the Big Mom Pirates. Fuck off, you old diabetic witch. I did not puke all over the damn deck when I came back after drinking at the pub. You did, you incompetent little shit for brains. Why did you think everyone was glaring at you when we cleaned up your mess when you were off in dreamland, you cunt? We almost didn't stop Edward from killing you off just so we can beat the shit out of you too, instead of letting you depart from this world so easily. They were still fighting over the fucking phone. A.N. Oof to that vow I made to release this chapter before New Year LMAO. Mashley finally got an anime adaptation, S2 fucking slaps, which is Pog. I want to see Mash fight Domina so badly, bruh. Anyways, back to Shiki. Boiling point, quickie. Move up and away towards the farther groves. Yes, Vice Admiral. Fujitora grunted as he dashed off towards the next signs of life that were close to Akainu and Shiki's fight. Whatever the fleet admiral was unleashing, the sheer shift in personality and emotions sent his body to work the moment Akainu gave a command, a simple one that sent shivers down to his spine. Get any nearby naval soldiers away from here. Back them off towards the tourist zone and the shipyards now. It felt like he was being warned of a natural disaster, one that could swallow the damn island whole. Fujitora kept sprinting around the island, even using his devil fruit on himself to fly vertically through the groves. He had also been communicating with the Den Mushi he had on hand to tell the other higher-ranking marines to order their man to back away too. But the ones closer towards the fight might not make it, so he personally gave Emma push by using large chunks of soil to push them away. They might break a couple of bones, but at least they will live. Honestly, he should be more rational, but his instinct was firing off on all cylinders. Every second passing became more audible. He could hear his own heart beating in his chest. Any second now, something will erupt. Fujitora. The man perked up, sensing the familiar presence that was closing in on him. Aramaki. What are you doing here? Checking up on you. Momonga told me through the dial about your order. His order? Is it that bad? Fujitora's face went grim. We will have to see. Aramaki hummed at that. Seems his friend was just as clueless as he was about what Akainu was about to unleash. Both men didn't have to wait for long as the ground shook. Fujitora could hear the other man gasping in surprise next to him. Whatever he was witnessing was just that grand. What is it? What do you see? It's... The man couldn't help but gaze onwards towards the endless tall trees, a bright red light shining behind them. Aramaki was in awe as the light grew brighter and higher, black clouds ascending above the trees and into the skies to smother out the blue. He could see the trees close towards the red light falling down and disappearing slowly into the ground. Eventually he could feel the heat burning onto his skin, but he was simply too in awe to give a damn. It's the power of the fleet admiral. What ferocity! Shiki mused, but the flying pirate felt himself tensing up for the first time since he broke out of impelled down. Shiki went harder on Fujitora and Akainu, hitting harder along with moving and attacking faster. It seems the brat's power stems from his emotions. More piss off, more firepower, Shiki internally speculated as he rapidly descended downwards to narrowly avoid a dog head made of pure molten magma. Shishi. Senjindai. Lion. Thousand Slice Valley. A barrage of bladed waves made its way towards Akainu. The attack simply passing through his body and sliced up the trees behind him until they either dispersed or hit the ground. Futile, Akainu coldly stated as he gripped his hands, raising his arms towards the man floating above water. Dai Funka, Great Eruption. Lava burst forth in great volumes towards Shiki. The man simply grasped his sword and swung hard, sweeping the air along with the magma attack along with it towards the side, which plummeted into the ocean. But the magma spewing forth from the fleet admiral was still coming towards him relentlessly, so he made the wise decision to dodge and weave around it while taking a good look at Akainu's state. The man's surroundings turned a charcoal black as cracks formed. Out came lava from the openings, which glowing if ready to erupt at any moment. There had been openings, massive holes of lava that were formed, and anything that was dropped into it was devoured whole. Shiki gritted his teeth as he kept flying around like a mosquito in the air, avoiding the relentless magma as he looked down at Akainu. The man glaring at him, his eyes homing in on him unblinking. The golden lion stopped dead in his tracks, turning his body before descending rapidly towards Akainu like a cannonball. His two katanas unsheathed and reeled back over his shoulders, hands coated in haki alongside his swords. Shishi. Moratsuna Kiba. Lion. Ferocious fangs. He swung down hard. The lion's bladed dark steel stabbed and sliced through the red dog's skin like butter, blood spewing forth in the form of an X shape as Akainu gritted his teeth. Unfortunately for Shiki, he gritted in pain as droplets of magma had separated from Akainu's body and found themselves burning into his skin, leaving holes that were smoking. Shiki kicked Akainu away when he attempted to punch him, leaving both injured, Akainu as his ribs were further broken from the strong armament haki, while the pirate himself found his legs shaking in pain as a puddle of lava stuck to his feet and burned through. A light tap with his katana on the lava made the searing hot liquid disperse from his leg that will have another scar towards his body now. Fuck, Shiki muttered, gritting his teeth as he did the same for the droplets burning inside his body. The pain was fucking bad but still manageable. He had felt worst during his time as a Rox. The golden lion leapt into the air again before a wave of magma could consume him, taking a good look at Akainu. He had personally cauterized his wounds with his own magma. The man's face showed no pain, just pure hatred that was all for Shiki to savor against his will. The pirate had to fight back a flinch from the sheer gaze. Shiki kicked the air, flipping his body upside down as he flew rapidly downwards, making a sharp cut from a downward descent to a human projectile barreling towards Akainu. Rapidly accelerating with one hand on the handle of his right sword, Shiki grinned as he suddenly gained a massive boost of speed. Zangose / Eclipse, the golden lion, upon being approximately 1 meter away from Akainu, unsheathed his sword that was already coated in haki and forced his body to turn a sharp left, stabbing and cutting deep into Akainu as his gutted him like a fish, floating rapidly away alongside his blade that he dragged and sliced through Akainu, leaving a deep bleeding scar. Alongside avoiding the droplets of magma from the sheer speed he flew at. Shiki grinned as he flew upwards, over Akainu's scarred body before repeating the same thing. Fly up, down then towards him, stab, fly and slice away. Repeat. Shiki did it about 5 times before the brat countered good, erecting blobs of magma around him before he could reach Akainu. Upon just narrowly breaking, the magma exploded outwards, which had him sputtering back in a panic to not be doused in the flesh-melting liquid. Unfortunately, he was too focused on the magma and ignored the charging Akainu, whose fist was reeled back. Inagami Guren, dog biting Crimson Lotus. That was a good one. He had to give it to him, using his distaste of being burned by his magma for a surprise attack. Not bad, but futile too, Shiki muttered humorously, body stance shifting as he no longer gripped his sword. And gripped the air itself. A little trick he learned after witnessing Newgate's devil fruit in action. With a couple of loose screws in his head, a stubborn determination to mimic that one move, he achieved it. His hands were reeled back, hands opened with palms facing each other, his fingers positioned like that of an animal's claw. And he extended it outwards towards Akainu, mere milliseconds before his attacks could touch him. Nanabiki no Shishinohoko, roar of the 7 lions. Akainu's body froze still, his attack mere inches away from being in contact with Shiki's head. Something was wrong. No matter how much Akainu tried to push forward, he couldn't move. The surrounding sounds felt muffled, he could barely hear anything, as if there were water in his ears clogging up his hearing. His body felt a gentle but chilling breeze that slowly colder every second, as if his body was becoming frozen. All he could do was stare at Shiki, who calmly went back to a relaxed and unguarded stance as he stared at Akainu before hovering to grounds free of his magma. The grounds covered by his magma slowly but surely receding back and slowly. He fucking hated it. Oh, what he would do to get his hand clutching his skull and melt through it to give him what he deserved, but yet he couldn't. Shiki, who was a couple feet away, gazed at the ocean from the edge of a cliff with his back turned. Suddenly grew further away. Slowly, sound came back, and all he could hear was the sound of rough wind as he kept getting further away and away from Shiki, before suddenly everything went to black. Shiki huffed as the air blast made his cloth wave aggressively forward. He could feel the rough winds hitting his back alongside the sounds of trees breaking, stones breaking and soil being dug up as Akainu's presence rapidly became further and fainter away from him. As peace and quiet came back, he turned around and grinned at the sight. Still got it. From where Akainu used to stand, everything behind him was nothing more than a large gaping hole that spans to half of Sabodi, the trees and dirt having large chunks removed to form a perfect circle. Shiki huffed, amusement rolling through his mind, wondering what state Akainu was currently in. Maybe if he was lucky, he snapped his neck along the way from his rapid departure away from this grove. But he doubts it, The presence of multiple marine dogs around the island probably meant that the ones near his landing were already closing in on Akainu to get him help. The brat will probably live to see another day. What's the worst that can happen if he was left alive? And so, Shikis walked around freely without the worry of any marine's presence, for they were all away from him, until finally, he stopped to gaze at the tall tree, more particularly, towards the tall branch covered by many of its leaves. A good place to hide and spectate the fight from. The branches rustled as Shiki flew towards it. Whoever was hiding could see his gaze locked onto him despite his cover. A gaze that became more clearer and closer as Shiki rapidly flew towards the person. That person was frozen still in pair as he gazed into the eyes of a predator. Before the person could leave, Shiki extended his arm outwards to grab the person's torso. A feminine yelp came from it as Shiki quickly flew far, far away as he grabbed her, weaving through the trees and flying above the leaves to conceal his presence. Eventually he settled down on a grove that was isolated and left unfortified by the Marines as Shiki got a good look at her, at this ballsy woman who dared stay to witness such a fight. A camera was in her hands along with a notebook and a pen. A journalist or a reporter seemed to be her occupation. Shiki grinned, but made sure his demeanor was calm. "Relax, you are not my enemy." Yet, Shiki said, the last part being a joke that frightened the girl, making him chuckle. What do you want?" "Oh, nothing much, I just want to enjoy my vacation time, see how much the world changed." He answered sincerely and honestly, the reporter still tensed but intrigued. "Say, you know who I am?" Shiki mused as the reporter hesitantly shook his head up and down. "And naturally. You are Shiki the Golden Lion, the flying pirate, admiral of the Golden Lion Pirates. A former emperor of the sea with a bounty of 4,160,000,000 berry." The woman gulped nervously as she squeaked the last parts out in the presence of such a dangerous being. Shiki couldn't help but smirk at the titles, nodding to himself as his ego inflated quite a bit. "Good, now how about you?" "Oh, a reporter for Big News Morgans," Alessia said through her fear, which was settling down as Shiki grinned at his luck. "I take it a reporter such as yourself is looking for a good scoop?" Her fears instantly drowned in turn for absolute curiosity about him, much to the man's surprise as it looked like he flipped a switch on her. "Very much indeed. Excuse me if I'm intruding into your personal space. But tales and stories from a figure such as yourself would hit big on the news. Oh, your voyage must have been grand and..." Shiki blinked. Observation haki futile to keep up with every word spewing forth from the reporter who had a damn machine gun for a mouth, shaking his head as he cut her off by smacking his hand over her mouth to speak over her. "What if I were to tell you about how I was a part of a crew under a captain? A crew consisting of the most dangerous individuals to roam the seas?" Shiki offered. Her head rose to face him, eyeing him like prey, hungry for information, hungry for an article to hit it big to the world. Shiki slowly retracted his hand away from her mouth to let her speak. "Then I would be happy to hear it. Good, but first, I want you to take me to your boss to run some things down with them. Today was a good day, the sun was out, the seas were calm and not a single Navy ship was in sight around Rusukaina Island. In other words, shit, a perfect day to train." A long-legged woman was sent flying, her back colliding against a giant rock that served as a hard cushion that made sure she didn't fly any further away from her sparring opponent. She. "You are going to need to do better than that, Smoothie," said Big Sister groaned in response, hands on the hard rocky cushion to push herself off, standing straight for a solid second before she had a hand on her knee with the other clutching the area where Luffy had punched. She found some small form of relief at the fact she couldn't feel her bones out of place nor heard any cracking sound when the punch landed. "That's some strong coat of arms," the former right-hand man of Roger complimented, Rayleigh's eyes staring in awe as he finally got a close look at the explosive power his student was already packing in armament haki somewhat. He couldn't get a perfect read when Luffy was holding back for obvious reasons. Although it felt eerily similar to that brat's haki when he did the same to train Shanks and Buggy when Roger asked him to. Albeit said brat held back even more since those two brats were younger, along with the fact he got his haki way later. Currently, Smoothie was also training under Rayleigh's supervision on Sukaina, which had been Luffy's training grounds for the past 2 weeks. The boys' observation haki training will be going under rescheduling to accommodate for the new student he would be training, which was Smoothie after what happened yesterday. A deal was a deal, and it wasn't even his money that he lost, so why not train another? He wasn't one to back down on a promise. And besides, Luffy's progress in observation haki was faster than Rayleigh had been expecting. He could utilize those free extra months by training Luffy's older sister too. Speaking of which, the two were currently sparring against each other. Fighting against someone strong, especially stronger than you, was a simple but very effective way to improve fast, especially when she was pitted against what was essentially a prodigy in armament haki. Punches and kicks imbued with armament haki were only allowed, normal attacks wouldn't work on Luffy, which is why haki-only attacks were allowed to make it fair. In the fight, no devil fruits nor weapons were permitted. And thus, Smoothie simply gave her sword to Rayleigh, the right-hand man blinking as he simply marveled at the massive sword for a second before laying it down on the ground. Now in the present time, throughout this entire sparring match to make Smoothie stronger, Luffy was severely overpowering her easily. It was an obvious outcome, but quite a sight to behold to witness a Yonko's top crewmate being dominated so easily. I get you're absurdly strong, but how the hell? Gramps training. Oh yeah, right. Smoothie clicked her tongue, huffing before painfully groaning as she set her back straight and faced him, shifting her stance, ready to go at it again for what felt like the 17th time of the day. She knew Luffy was strong, but she wasn't expecting for Luffy to be just as hard-hitting as Mama was. Smoothie has clashed against King the Wildfire before and held her ground against the man before Katakuri came and aided her to push the man back when a confrontation between her family and Kaido's crew occurred. Had stood her ground against a hunger pang-induced enraged Mama for 20 minutes straight until someone got the food she was craving for. And was able to fight and defeat Compote after 10 grueling hours of non-stop fighting against the woman which had solidified her rights to replace the elder sister as the new sweet general. But this was something else. A close-quarter duel against someone who can hit as strong, if not more than Mama. Someone who had strong battle sense and can alter his movements, stance and techniques to fight more effectively against her? She had never truly fought a Yonko, but in this moment, this spar alone gave her an idea of what would the outcome be if that ever happened. He wasn't even giving it his all. The same could be said for her with how devil fruits were left out. But she knew how unfair it would be if it was an all-out brawl. Every kick or punch Smoothie threw was either instinctively dodged by Luffy or was met with a strong defense to counter her attack in the form of Luffy's arms coated in his abnormally tough armament haki to block her strike. And she had to grit her teeth every time she did collide against his haki-imbued limbs. It felt like hitting an extremely thick steel wall. The way he fought too was another challenge in of itself. He fought wild and freely like an unchained animal on an extreme caffeine high. His fighting style and patterns were never a constant flow of strikes, always altering and changing along with very well-placed feints, making Luffy absolutely unpredictable without haki. It felt like punching and kicking a wall that could hit back harder and irregularly. But throughout all this sparring, all the muscle aching heavily and the pain she was receiving, she can feel her haki growing stronger. It was small and barely noticeable, but it was pretty fast improvement considering this was the first day of training, alongside the fact her growth slowed down till a halt a couple years ago. Alright, here I come. Smoothie was broken out of her thought as Luffy loudly declared with a feral grin, cracking his knuckles before rapidly closing the distance between them as he launched himself at her. His right arm reeled back behind his shoulder as his fist clenched and shined a charcoal black. Smoothie huffed before matching his grin with her own wild grin as she charged towards him. Every strategy and intelligent thought thrown out of the window as she resorted to mirroring the actions of her younger brother. She couldn't help it, she knew she was outmatched, but yet her heart pumped faster not in fear, but in pure wild excitement. The wind felt cool and breezy against her skin. The colors of the jungle became livelier and more colorful as if life was breathing down on the scenario. Her heart kept on pumping faster and faster as her grin became more genuine and wilder. She had never been so aware that she was alive and breathing until this moment. No reputation to uphold, no sword unsheathed and raised when ordered, she was doing this for herself and herself alone. As both siblings got close, both slammed their foot on the sole, digging up dirt as they slid to a halt. Torsos turned as their fists were on a one-way collision course towards each other. And their punch connected. Bang as both stood at a standstill with their fist colliding. The ground cracked and formed a web between the two that spread outwards like a parasite, the soil pushing forth out from the ground as they continued exerting their power, both fighting for power. Luffy exerted his power with ease and a grin bearing his face while Smoothie was struggling but was matching his power with her own grin, although her teeth were grinding against each other as she did so. She. It's been a while since I've properly fought someone with haki, Luffy said with glee as he pushed his fist forth against Smoothie whose arm rattled in the sudden increase of force. That's so, Smoothie spat out as she struggled, letting out noises of what sounded like a person suffocating as she pushed back, their fists going back to a standstill as Smoothie fought hard on what was essentially a reverse tug of war over power. Luffy's grin turned wider, seeing this as a challenge as he pushed forth, overwhelming the poor older sister easily as his fist slid away from Smoothie's and connected to her lower rib, forcing all the air out of Smoothie's mouth as she skidded away. Two lines forming from her boots that had been dug deep into the ground until she finally halted from her slide and kneeled, hand grasping where her brother had hit her. "Ah, my bad. It's fine." Sfi's apology as she laid her back on the ground and took heavy breaths. She hadn't been hit this badly apart from Katakuri or Compote. "Impressive display of haki, you two displayed." Rayleigh mused, walking up to Smoothie, an already cut coconut in hand to which he offered to the tall lass who gratefully took the drink and barbarically gulped it down in seconds without grace. Smoothie groaned in response as Luffy just let a noise of acknowledgement at Rayleigh's compliment, with the younger sibling walking up and sitting across from her. "This settles today's lesson, the skies turning orange and the suns descending down towards the seas. Luffy, I will train your observation haki this week, Smoothie. The next, we will alternate like that." Both siblings nodded as Rayleigh simply walked away, dropping Smoothie's sword next to her after their acceptance, probably towards the pot over the fire that kept his dinner hot. "What kind of hellish training were you put under to become this monstrous?" Smoothie slightly whined, pain subsiding slowly but surely as she stared at her brother in slight disbelief. "Well, Gramps started training me since I was 2. He made me punch boulders with my bare hands for hours after breakfast, and only stop when it's dinner. Then he made me fight him every day when I became 4 or 5 years old, somewhere around there. And whenever I'm not training, he would leave me alone deep in the forest by myself." Luffy shuddered, remembering those sleepless nights of being constantly on guard because of the wild animals that would try and kill him the moment he let his guard down. But he was glad that at least it wasn't all quiet inside, all alone by himself in the dark. With the wildlife around him and the occasional fireflies that flew by, at least he knew he wasn't alone. That was a hell he would love to stay away from. That's something no child should go under. Smoothie clicked her tongue in disdain at this new piece of information. Her siblings would only start training once they were 13, 10 or younger if they kept on bugging Mama to commence training earlier on in their life or simply ask an older sibling to train them. She was going to later inform Mont Dore of this, add it to the list of things Garp did to their little brother for later use, be it blackmail or mass-scale reputational ruin for the Marines and governments. No doubt Morgans would be highly interested, spreading it far and wide. The shit show would be catastrophic if the world finds out the so-called hero of the Navy, one of the most well-known walking legends in the world, was a child abuser. Hell, many would probably link Garp's training to the reason his grandsons became criminals in the first place. That was honestly probably one of the few reasons why Luffy became a pirate upon further thought on the matter, his sworn brother included. Luffy chuckled, he couldn't help but see Ace's anger in his sister. The way they both grumbled about Gramps' training was way too similar. "Yeah, I found that out and got jealous really quick when I saw the other kids who lived in the village normally. But then I thought about it and realized I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't think I would have met Shanks, Ace or Sabo if I lived like M2. Smoothie couldn't help but huff, a bitter smile of her own making its way onto her face. How many of her siblings and herself had wished for a normal life, only for them to accept it would never happen considering their lineage and the fact they would be always seen as pirates. Didn't matter what kind of good they did in the world or if they made some world-shattering discoveries or inventions, they will always be viewed in the light of negativity for the accursed lineage they were under. She wondered, hey, humor me a bit, little brother. If a child was born and scorned for having the blood of a pirate running through his veins, would that child be destined to follow his parents' footsteps and become a pirate themselves no matter what, especially when everyone tells them that's the only path that they can take? That's dumb. Gramps is a Marine, Dad is a revolutionary, but you don't see me like them. I'm a pirate, and I chose to become that because I wanted to. Luffy huffed as he laid down on the ground like Smoothie as said older sister simply listened quietly. Blood doesn't make you who you are, it's you who decides what you want to become. Screw those bastards who decided what you will be in the future. Live your life as you wanna and become whatever you want to be. Luffy said with a grumpy attitude as he groaned, getting the shivers as memories flooded of Garp, convincing him to become a Navy soldier. Smoothie just laid there in stunned silence, taking in her brother's unexpected sagely words of wisdom. Words that should have come from the elderly came from a 17-year-old. She then continued on, a bit of hope in her voice. Then let's say, if that child had already become a pirate, she wants to chase after her dreams when every single one tells her to just be someone else. Can she chase her own dreams against everyone's wishes? Well duh. They don't control her life, it's her own, and besides, she's already a pirate. She can do whatever she damn well wants to when she is one. Why should she listen to anyone else besides herself first? Smoothie spurted, the lips of her mouth pressed against each other before she couldn't hold in her laughter anymore and bellowed out wholeheartedly, as if hearing the most ridiculous statement she had heard in her life. Wanted to hear in her life. Oh, if only you were raised alongside us, our lives would have been complete. Don't worry about it, just me thinking about something. Smoothie huffed, ruffling Luffy's hair as she stood up, a smile on her face, the most grateful and sincere one she could subconsciously muster at those words. Come on, let's go. This will be the last time we all would eat dinner together, for a long while anyway. Smoothie said with an upbeat voice, leaning forward to hold out a hand towards Luffy, whom took it to stand up himself, looking confused at his sister's words. Last time? What's happening? Smoothie snorted. Right, he still doesn't fully understand a lot about his family. Most of your siblings, including myself, have places to be. Governing an island and making sure everything runs smoothly without problems. Be it overseeing facilities or just overall serve as deterrent for anyone thinking of committing mischief by simply being there. Really? We won't see each other again anymore? Don't worry, we tend to gather back on whole cake after 3 to 4 months or so, but it really depends on how busy our schedule is and the overall time it would take to sail to Mama's castle. And besides, the ones who aren't a minister of an island can choose where to reside. A third of our family still lives with Mama. Maybe 2 or a single month for a Nodir family reunion if we are lucky, or if many of our siblings asked for it. Smoothie internally added on. Smoothie shrugged, they could also meet up in Brulee's mirror world too. Although it all depended on how much her older sister can run mirror to mirror, the quantity of siblings joining, and just generally if Brulee was free or not, which was something the elder sister seems to always be with how she wasn't a minister, that tax being passed to her twin sister. Luffy though looked relieved. Oh, so not the last, that scared me. He hadn't spoken with all of them or got to know them yet. Smoothie simply huffed in amusement. Yeah, it just will take a while for all of us to meet up. You can also talk to big sister Brulee to take you to one of us at any time. Just walk up the mirror and shout out her name. Alright, what the hell happened to you, Smoothie? Both Smoothie and Luffy winced at Brulee's shrieks of clear concern seeing the long-legged woman's state. The elder sister has never seen her younger sister, much less a sweet general to boot, look like they had beerage with how many bruises and scratches she had. She entered in the mirror world freshly wounded as if she stepped out of a bloody battlefield. Well, actually, she went on to explain everything, how she had been pitted to fight against Luffy for hours straight. And Brulee responded by lightly bonked both of their heads, doing a leap to reach Smoothie's thick skull after giving one to Luffy. She looked bemused at their blaring similarities when it comes to training. Why was it the strong, the bloodthirsty, and the wild brothers and sisters in the family always looking for ways to train themselves to the point of severity or near death? She knows there isn't and never will be a single sane one amongst the family. But why, just why were so many lacking common sense? You damn reckless idiots. Smoothie. You got to take training easy, little sis. Last time you had trained so hard was when you were trying to strengthen your shins by hitting it against a fucking iron pole. A solid piece of steel. You painted one entire side a bloody red with how much you were hitting it, for crying out loud. And Luffy. Know your siblings' limits. We might be as tough as an iron hull, But your strength overpowers our toughness and could severely injure any one of us. We can recover quickly, but a broken bone would still need a doctor to see it." "Sorry." Both siblings apologized simultaneously to their older sister, but the two neither looked like they were processing Brulee's words through their heads nor had an ounce of regrets or remorse displayed on their face. Both might have a somewhat sheepish look dawning their faces, but that was mainly because the mirror woman was glaring them down. With a deep sigh followed by a tongue click by Brulee, she simply motioned for them to sit down as she inspected them, opening up a bag of medicinal equipment for on-the-field treatment. For Luffy, she took a quick glance and evaluated he was completely fine. It was a no-brainer, of course the boy who fought 3 admirals and one was unscathed. Smoothie on the other hand. Brulee looked up and down, letting a big sigh out before reaching her hands into her bag to pick up some stuff to treat her injuries. A couple of elastic bandages for whenever their siblings were sparring, although it was rare for her to use a lot on a single person, much less a sweet general. She wrapped it around her limbs, making sure it was secure and the right tightness, ensuring that it wasn't overly done which would lead to overswelling. A process done for both arms and legs before she looked at Smoothie. "Bones? They're fine. Any bruises underneath?" "Most likely. Look away, brother." "Okay," Luffy hummed without question, averting his eyes as he darted around the numerous mirrors. Brulee sighed again as she stared unimpressed by Smoothie, who nonchalantly unclipped her leotard and pulled up the front piece of cloth, exposing herself with a blank expression on her face, not looking bothered. The elder sister never understood why a leotard of all things. She knows the sweet general needed free leg room to kick enemies, but the same effect could have been achieved with shorts. She didn't dwell too much on her younger sister's poor sense of fashion as she winced at 2 purple spots before getting to work, using the same treatment as the rest of the other bruises. "Alright, you should recover in at least a day. Make sure you sleep with your arm, legs and upper torso raised," Brulee commented, gaining a nod of acknowledgement from Smoothie as she quickly redressed before they both stood up, Brulee dusting off any dirt she could have gotten on her dress as she petted Luffy's shoulder to get his attention. "Come on, Mama's waiting for us alongside everyone else." The mood in the dining room was awkward to say the least when the last of them rolled in. It wasn't every day they saw one of their own, much less someone as tough as Smoothie looked so beat up as she drank the grape-flavored beverage she was named after calmly. She was completely unbothered by the attention she was getting, numerous eyes darting around the bandages wrapped around parts of her body that were visible, her triplet sisters staring the most with concerned eyes to which she simply gave a shrug. They were told that she would be training with Luffy, and by the looks of her state, it could have been falsely assumed to be an endurance training from hell with how she was halfway mummified. Majority looked wary or in awe of Luffy, whom innocently ate the meat on his plate. The worried ones making sure to not piss him off down the lines, while the ones in awe were curious about the scale of his strength. "Sheesh, you don't hold back, don't you?" Ewan discreetly whispered, sweat dropping down his head as Smoothie was slowly but surely being questioned more by their siblings about her state, to which she simply smiled and waved off their worries with a, "I'm fine," or "I'm good." But I didn't use my devil fruit." Luffy now looked at them in confusion as they started sweat dropping more. Honestly, the best way to scale his strength would actually be a one-on-one fight against Katakuri or Mama herself. Speaking of the two, Katakuri had his arms crossed, back sat straight as always, subtly glancing at Luffy in clear interest. Oven and Daifuku simply stared at Katakuri in silence, taking quick peeks at Katakuri alongside the direction to where he was staring off to. He definitely was going to fight Luffy within a week or month, no doubt. It was inevitable, a future set in stone. Big Mom, on the other hand, had been taken aback from seeing her bandaged-up daughter but died down her worries when she saw how she didn't seem negative about it but rather had the look on her face that just spelled, "looking forward to next time," written all over her face. It was all training, no personal feelings involved, which placed her in such a state. Although it would be nice if they toned it down a bit in consideration for Smoothie's health. But knowing her daughter though, she probably wouldn't let that happen. Hell, Smoothie would be the one asking Luffy to not hold back against her if anything else. And it seemed her son was all too glad to comply with his sister's wishes with how nonchalant he was acting about what he had done. "Mama, you alright?" Lin Lin blinked, staring down at Compote before nodding, consuming her food finally. Yeah, just having dinner thoughts. Nothing more or less, my dear child. She reassured her. Her eldest daughter nodded slowly before continuing to eat. Although Compote shot curious glances a few times alongside majority of her other children, curiosity etched on a few, but most were painted with worry on their face for her, which made her heart feel fuzzy with their concerned and worried glances at her. It was nice. Home sweet home, Smoothie sighed, stretching her back before groaning in pain, a reminder that she needed time to recover and take it easy. At least she was one of the few in the family blessed with great natural healing factors. It normally takes a few days to be fully alright if it was any other sibling. Sister, whatever advice Brule gave you, you better fucking take it seriously. What she said, or we will chain you down to your bed. Cinnamon and Citron shot her a look that just spelt harsh scolding if she were to ignore their words. Her triplet sisters were also probably a big factor why she can heal quickly, with how they really made sure she was recovering properly at home and comfortably in bed and not out patrolling, fighting or training. She couldn't help but wonder if she truly was the eldest amongst them with how they act around her all the time back when Smoothie was first assigned as a minister. Hell, they treated her like she was a child with how they always either cooked breakfast for her, wake her up personally in the morning, lecture her about stuff moms tell their 10-year-olds to her not to do. It was ridiculous, but she just rolled with it, figuring out they would eventually st with a sigh. Smoothie just wave off their concern. Sheesh, you girls. I will be fine, I'm tougher than most. You know that. You didn't say anything about resting. She walked forth, ignoring her sisters as she turned a left to face 4 doors in the hallway. 2 doors on the right, a door on the left and a door at the end. The 3 nearest to her were their separate living rooms. The one at the end though, how long has it been since she has opened that door? Her childhood, her aspirations and dreams, she took it all, placed them in that room. And abandoned it. Oh, this is very nice. You got a knack for this, lil sis. Hey, you know. Maybe one of these days, you could see one of your canvases hanging on a museum, wouldn't that be something? You got real talent there, little sis. Just make sure no one sees it and don't tell anyone about this, yeah? Especially mama. An artist, that was what she originally aspired to be. Always had been at heart, spending hours regularly on a canvas, painting away in her own little world that nobody except her sisters knew of. But she was also just as skilled, way much more, in fighting. A potential that was favored and valued more by others. Especially the old mama. She tried showing everyone that she was more than just another strong fighter amongst the familiar. Tried to show she could be more than another fighter. She should have taken Cracker's advice to heart to keep that to herself. The pained expression of his face when he said that to her should have told her all she needed to know. Huh? Drawing? Why? You should go and train like the rest of your siblings, Smoothie-sama. Paintings are worthless and considered cursed if they were drawn by pirates, especially with who your mama is. You're better off with a sword in your hand than some paintbrush. A warrior is more suited for you than some feeble artist. PFF'd, don't bother little girl. We are pirates, whether we like it or not. The government will forever label us as that, and they will see as just that. Nobody will see you as an artist, just a mere pirate that finds joy in pillaging and murder rather than a normal person. And your mother also would like to keep it that way. Gahahaha. Hick, did you listen to what the young Les said? An artist? Gahaha hick ha. The beer really be kicking in tonight. Ya must be talking about painting the walls a bloody red with the blood of your enemies, right girl? As if any one of you or your siblings can be normal. Ho, what is this? Nice drawing, kid. Rip asterisk. She quietly snorted. Unlucky bastard just had to do that when Cracker was around her. Her older brother made sure that man was nothing more than a mere pile of flesh for making her eyes go watery. Although he didn't need to go as far as to tear the entire inn down in her name. Not a lot of people really took her seriously whenever she proudly told them about what she liked to do. It became more of a curse rather than a blessing whenever she brought it up, but at most she just left in a grumpy mood, spirit unshaken by the words of grown-ups telling her what was best for her. Their words didn't truly crack Smoothie's conviction. The one who did was none other than Mama herself, shaking that conviction to her core. And all it took was a single sentence, Mama, tell me Smoothie, what is this? Oh, that's one of my drawings. Rip, what a waste. Huh? You heard me, child. This is worthless. A talent that won't benefit me at all. Tell me, Smoothie. Can a person defend our lands by wielding a brush? Can they bring me a step closer to utopia? World peace? No, you damn selfish brat. It's all just worthless shit that won't help me reach my future. If I want a painting, I will just simply take it from someone else or someone better than you. Abandon that path, Smoothie. Your potential lies in fighting. That's why I will turn a blind eye to your disobedience this one time. I want what is best for you like everyone else, and that is for you to be a good child that will listen to me just like any other. So listen very closely. You will never be an artist. You are better off using a sword, a fighter. You might even rise up and become a sweet general child. Don't you want to be like your few reliable and strong siblings who stand atop at the pinnacle of your brothers and sisters? You have high potential, Smoothie, one I can't ignore, and I desire that for you. Now go. I already cleared some time off from Katakuri's schedule so he can waste his precious time to spend on someone like you. Are you going to waste my time once again, child? No, mama. Then go. Stop pursuing something not meant for you. Do it for me. Yes, mama. Smoothie shuddered a bit in remembrance of that day. That was the first time someone truly made her question everything. She never openly drew ever again, never with a bright, prideful smile. Locking herself in her room alongside with her other canvases to continue onwards, sometimes her hand shivered, holding the brush as she painted on the canvases. But what truly shattered her dreams and fully embraced an unwanted path was that accident. Where did that fucker go? That damn cock-sucking bitch. Click, this is Melise. That damn revolutionary fuck isn't here. Not here either. Tisk, we shouldn't have let our guard down. Click, this is Perisparrow. We have scoured the entirety of Whole Cake. He must be further out. Tisk, got it. I will get the fleet to form a circle around our territory, rendezvous with Brûlé and head outwards to the islands furthest away from the chateau. We know nothing about that man's whereabouts right now, but let us assume he is midway from escaping. We mustn't allow that bastard to escape with him. Any other outcome except his capture and execution is simply unacceptable. Got it? Yeah. Clank. Damn it. Smoothie cursed as she watched on. Soldiers running in and out of alleyways. Many prowled on top of the rooftops while majority were running around the streets, running door to door without care of the citizens to perform a thorough house check. Everything was in utter chaos. Torches lit up everywhere, on the streets, on the roofs. Even the other islands around the one she were lit up by several orange dots, like a great migration of fireflies. Such a beautiful sight was drawn for a terrible scenario. She sprinted forth towards the mirror, shouting with all her might. Brûlé, he isn't here either. Bring me to the next. She ran through the entirety of Toto Land and quite possibly a fraction of the mirror world, altering between the two worlds frantically just like every other sibling and available soldier and homie. God bless Brûlé's soul with how she was handling all of this movement of people entering and exiting her mirror world. That damn dragon was someone everyone was rightfully wary of the moment Katakuri pointed his spear at him on sight when he stepped into their land, but Mama waved off all their concerns. Someone whose observation haki surpassed many, couldn't feel or sense the bastard anywhere within the waters of Toto Land. She can't allow it. No, his escape being successful can't be the outcome of this mess no matter what. Mama had shown signs of turning over a new leaf. She can't allow the opportunity to be ruined by that damn bastard. Her newest baby brother did something no one else including herself do, and that was make Mama reflect on herself for once in her life. She can't allow him to be stolen away now of all times, damn it. How did this happen? Why did it have to be him? Damn it, if only she was stronger, then maybe, just maybe. She was a child that had shown great potential for possessing great skill in haki after getting hers ahead faster than most and had displayed rapid and successful growth in observation and armament equally. If she had spent more time training than painting away without a damn care, held out a little fucking longer. That was the moment she only fully embraced the sword she now carries. Her back straightened, her posture full of confidence and authority. Her hands no longer dyed in various colorful paints and colors, it was all soaked in a bloody red. Also, such an accident can never happen again, and so, she let herself turn into Smoothie, gaining the epithet, the one-eyed terror, for her natural hairstyle covering her right eye at all times. A sweet general, a seasoned pirate that had over 932 million on her head. But now she wanted to be more than that. That's dumb. Gramps is a Marine. Dad is a revolutionary. But you don't see me like them. I'm a pirate, and I chose to become that because I wanted to. Blood doesn't make you who you are. It's you who decides what you want to become. Screw those bastards who decided what you will be in the future. Live your life as you wanna and become whatever you want to be. Huh? Well duh. They don't control her life. It's her own. And besides, she's already a pirate. She can do whatever she damn well wants to. Why should she listen to anyone else? She couldn't help but laugh in that moment. A smile creeped on her face. Luffy would have probably been upset if he knew, which was why she will never tell him, because that's one of the many damn things she wanted to do in her life. She was a pirate after all, just as he said, she will do whatever she wanted. This was her life, only she could decide what she wanted to do and become. He was right. Why the hell should she let others dictate what she wanted to be? There was no one that owned her, no strings attached that could control her, and that new realization creeping into her soul felt liberating. She was free. Smoothie, what's wrong? Said woman-side glanced to look at her sisters who looked worried before she blinked in realization. Right, she had been thinking for quite a while motionless, of course it would look weird and concerning to others. She huffed, waving off their worries with a lazy grin. Her black slightly slumped as she finally let herself relax. Her mind was no longer on her duties and responsibilities. Discipline and upholding order be damned. Just give her a day to be free. She didn't need to shoulder her burden all alone when she had her reliable sisters around. Don't worry about it, just thinking about something. She turned her body to face her eye reignited with passion as she gave a bright smile. Say, wouldn't it be nice if we had some paintings around the house? Around the same time Luffy and Smoothie had left into the mirror. Hey, that was definitely, no mistaking, that was Charlotte Smoothie. What is one of the Yonku's top members and daughter doing here? Training with Luffy more or less? Another woman? Sandersonia and Marigold tensed, spine shivering as they slowly turned their heads to look back to see their seething older sister. Who's trying to steal my Luffy? Alright. This shit was overdue LMAO. Honestly, I didn't think it would take this long. I haven't updated this for nearly a fucking year it feels like. Anyways, still figuring out how to do this. Mix Luffy interacting with the Charlottes while progressing the story, or push all that interaction to the end. Working on the bio still for all 85. I'm at the 16th child still. For Smoothie, IDKY, but I feel like she has the demeanor of Robin mixed with the brashness, recklessness and boldness of Luffy cheeky smiley face. Life be rough bro, second year of schooling feeling like shit, got a trip to Nam so that's something I guess. Anyway, here's a canon side story cheeky smiley face golden time. What does a lowly life form think they're doing to someone as prestigious as me? Apologize and kill yourself before me you lowly piaw? As much as I would love to permanently silence you, a friend of ours would very much like you delivered to him alive. Sabo sighed in disappointment at that part, twirling his pipe around as he squatted, looking down at the celestial dragon he cornered in the alleyway after taking out his goons and recently bashed his head in, the imprint red and visibly, which was a small consolation for this annoying bastard assaulting his poor ears with garbage vocabulary. He couldn't help but gently place his hand over his scar that was reacting strongly to the sight of this snobby creature, the burning sensation fresh in his mind. He had seen what these inhumane trash that believe themselves to be high and mighty have done to those not born in the Holy Land. He could be seen as one of the lucky victims compared to the more unfortunate and gruesome fates of others who had less than stellar meetings with them. Celestial dragons were a breed that could unite all people from different races and backgrounds to hate and despise well, except those that protect them. Our benefactor would like a word with you, so please try and be cooperative as we take you to him, Sabo advised, patting his shoulder as he stood up, dusting his clothes, reeled his hand back as he dangerously sped up his pipe, twirling as he delivered another blow. A satisfying sound of what seemed like his jaw-breaking came from the hit as he laid limply, much to the blonde's sinister satisfaction. A secondary hit was needed to ensure for complete non-consensual cooperation for him to simply keep quiet as they carry and lead him to their investor. With two claps of his hands, two of his colleagues stepped out of the alleyway, a fishman and woman that wore raged robes to hide their figure, pulling down their hoods as they observed the unconscious celestial dragon. These were none other than Hack and Koala, two people Sabo grew up close to in the revolutionary. "This is the guy we are supposed to bring over to Gold Star?" Koala asked curiously. Gold Star, one of their biggest backers and reason how the revolutionaries were so well funded. Many felt iffy about his generous donation to their cause because of his anonymous status and background. He normally left the funds for the revolutionaries in dead drop points. Most preferable method of his were big empty ships loaded with cash in the middle of nowhere. But today was very different, because this will be the first time they actually see the man up front, handing in the cash personally. Not only that, he tripled the monthly funding, just under one condition. Catch a certain celestial dragon. The one which Hack was tying up, gagging, blindfolding and finally putting him inside a large bag to disguise the bastard they were hauling off as nothing more than a sack of potatoes. Not only that, but Gold Star even was generous enough to bribe the Navy to leave the island unguarded, which in his words were through a good motivational stack of berries for their hard day's works, alongside ensuring the citizens would either be minimal or none when they nabbed him. He really was thorough about the operation succeeding with how invested he was into it. "Wonder why specifically this person, must be personal," Koala commented. It wasn't uncommon and was the most logical reason to point towards. People who funded and backed them up all had very bad blood with the celestial dragons. Real nasty past meetings with them that obviously ended in sour emotions. Whatever the reason is, let's go. Those bodyguards of his would wake up and alert the government soon. Hack huffed as the younger people nodded, leaving and making sure not to draw attention to themselves. "By the way Sabo, how is it, reuniting with your brothers?" Koala wondered, which made Sabo flinch before chuckling. "Nice. It was nice. It truly was. Ace didn't straight up kill him on the spot while Luffy was still Luffy. He was glad that his birth contributors didn't target his brothers and they were still alive after he lost his memories, although he doubt anyone except maybe around a Vic admiral or two would be needed to handle them. Luffy was a monster in his own league, someone whose growth clearly didn't slow down, which was made clear by the little show of power he gave in Marineford. Hell, even now he was trained by Rayleigh. No doubt his brother's charm even works on the right-hand man of Roger to persuade him to train him. He was no slouch either, considering he was taught haki by Luffy before undergoing amnesia. Even with his memories temporarily gone, he could use haki as freely as he breathed, something which made a lot of people in the army to freak out about considering his age at the time and where he was found. He rose in the ranks easily once he officially joined the ranks of the revolutionary after practically being his second family to him, raising him and seeing them as great friends. Although his brothers will always take top priority, he was the only non-devil fruit user that can swim amongst them after all. Someone needed to save their ass if they were to trip or somehow drown in the ocean. And he was willing to throw away his life as the revolutionary for his brother's sake if they ever needed it, something he made clear with Dragon, to which he respected his wishes. That, along with how he can't, nay, absolutely not fail them a second time after Marineford, he won't forgive himself for not showing up if a scenario like that were to ever come up again and he failed to be there. The guilt burned deep but was eased by his brother's acceptance and just needed time for him to overcome this stupid feeling and focus on the present times. "Any bets on who it is?" Koala broke Sabo out of his train of thoughts, blinking at her before answering without thought. "Tesoro. Eh? That guy? Tesoro, Guild Tesoro. The Casino King, to be more exact." On the surface, he was the wealthiest man, the owner of Grand Tesoro, a massive ship with a metropolis built on it, described as the largest entertainment city in the world. But the ones who dug deeper beneath the surface will see how far his roots dug around the underworld and the world government are. His influence was immense as a kingpin, which led to his underworld nickname. Monster of the New World. Well, he does have a lot of gold, and is a golden human himself, Sabo mused, although there was another reason. Star. His high-ranking subordinates all had stars incorporated into their clothing, something Tesoro probably ordered. Add that with the fact he had a massive gold deposit that he could control with the Goru no Mi and the rumors off the lucky people who saw Guild Tesoro personally perform on stage. Well, you got a golden star. Honestly, it was a pretty simple way to connect the two dots, so simple that Sabo initially scoffed at the simplicity. But the more he pondered about it, the more he can't help but feel like he hit the nail on the head. But the mere notion of such a man backing the revolutionary was ludicrous. Unless the man himself had a sour encounter in the past with a celestial dragon or a government-related situation. And not a lot of people know much about him. Even the best information brokers and our networks combined could only dig and find already known information. Sabo added on. There truly wasn't much to go by. Tesoro just sprung up in an auction and stole the Goru no Mi from the warlord Doflamingo, rising to power and seemingly making amends with the warlord and slowly rose to higher power. And that's where it ends. And finally, the last thing to confirm my suspicions is you, Sabo mused, as the group stopped in front of an abandoned mansion in ruins. A wealthy slave merchant used to live here, but after Fisher Tiger's attack on Mary Joieuse, a lot of the former slaves came here for revenge, firebombing the place and crucifying their captor on a burning cross. Ever since then, nobody came here due to rumors of hearing screams of the damned haunting the grounds. That didn't stop their investor and his pose from using this as their meeting point, made evident by the bright golden star medal that hanged on the rusty gates. Opening the very creaky gates, they stepped in, Sabo taking out his pipe, tapping on the cracked grounds which made Koala and Hack on guard. Multiple people inside waiting for them, courtesy of his observation haki. As they reached the steps up to the door, they were warmly welcomed by a small man who opened the door, bowing slightly. Greetings, our esteemed guest. Golden Star is waiting inside. I assume you have it inside the potato sack? Indeed, had to give a good hit on the head to keep it quiet. Is there any problem for damaging the goods? No, none at all. Come on in. He is quite eager to personally meet you upstairs. The small man opened the doors for them to come in, looking further ahead for any leeches that latched unto them while coming here. Then excuse us, Sabo tipped his head, entering with Hack and Koala closely behind him. Just as expected, the wood was creaky, many spots horribly charred from makeshift firebombs to tear the place down. No doubt fancy furnishing either were broken or simply stolen. This is kind of creepy, Koala muttered, shivering a bit at the atmosphere as Hack sighed, patting her shoulder while Sabo chuckled at his friend's nervousness. Don't worry, we just dropped the sack. Take the money and go, Sabo reassured as they headed upstairs, wood creaking heavily under their feet. Their heads snapped, with Koala shrieking as they heard a woman seductively laughing to the side, which got their attention. A long red-haired woman sat on a chair, staring at them amused as she flipped a coin before staring off into another direction. I told you, the young girl with them would definitely be quite a scaredy cat. Looks like I won the bet, right Guild? Indeed you did, dear. Your luck truly surpasses all baccarat. A masculine voice replied with a grumbling tone that had a hint of playfulness in it, holding no spite, which made the woman named Baccarat giggle. It truly is you. Guild Tesoro, Sabo exclaimed, staring at Guild Tesoro, sitting in the center with expecting eyes on his calm face with a soft smile, staring between him and the sack Hack was carrying. You got him? Tesoro asked in a calm, soothed voice, but the ice in his tone was anything but. Hack simply approached and dropped the man, unwrapping the sack slightly to allow the celestial dragon's unconscious face to peek through. The reaction was instant, his pupils shrinking as his smile widened with a sinister glee in it as he glared a hole into him. That face, that goddamn fucking smug face that had mocked him in closed eyes. A permanent mark that burned worser than the brand that burned into his flesh. What a stellar day it was. Baccarat's luck must be infectious, for today he had hit the biggest jackpot of his life. Sabo tipped his hat, bowing his head slightly enough to hide his eyes. So, Mr. Goldstar, our payment? The golden man of the hour grinned. You won't ask questions about my request to kidnap this trash? Is it our business to pry into such things? No, it's personal. Very, very personal. And I appreciate your lack of questions, at the moment. Then we will be on our way once you tell us where to get our pay. Good. Baccarat. Yes, here. Boss was kind enough to make sure the location is much more discreet. A blind spot away from the Navy's patrols. Pleasure doing business with you. And just as Sabo reassured, they did just that, deliver, receive coordinates for their pay, and simply leave without causing much trouble. Stepping outside, they watch as the small man grinned widely at them as he creepily closed the door. The rumors aren't exaggerating, Sabo muttered, staring ahead as they continued walking to the rusty gates. Huh? What rumors? You can hear screaming here, all right. A lot of vengeful spirits lurking around those grounds. The blonde commented one last time with a huff, opening the gate as he let his companions leave first, giving one last good look at the ruined house before leaving himself without any further words. The screams continued on, accompanied by a lesser audible laughter of a mad vindictive man. Ah, what a lucky day it is. Can you hear it from the skies above? Same house of the man that had made you a slave in the first place, just as you had told me in your tales from behind your glass display. I pray to the gods above, that the sounds of well-due retribution, the song of glorious agony that stirs from our tormentor, brings you as much peace and glee as I do right now, Stella. This dedicated live gold star hit single that I am making, goes out solely to you, from wherever you are listening, Stella. My raw pure emotions had been placed into this very moment. It is worth more than any gold that I could have in this very world. I will make sure to take this instrument back to the Grand Tesoro, so I can play it every day as tribute to you, my stellar star. I will make sure that only you and I can hear it in shared solitude. May you rest easy, unchained, and in peace, Stella.